Welcome to the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. Empower your purpose with Raymond. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday at noon right here on the Word on Woodward. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your live notifications. Owl team dietitian. She's got a very, very amazing story. We're joined by
every year. This one obviously would say the 2019-20 Detroit Red Wings. And then after that, it's locker clean out into the room. And what's kind of sad about it is because you know that there's several players that are cleaning out their locker. And I mean clean out. They take all their equipment bags, all their sticks, and they head home for the summer, or various parts of the world. But several of them are not going to be back. And you build up a relationship. Some of these guys you've known for years, and you know that they're not going to be back. And then some of them you've covered them for a year or two, but you do build up relationships. And you know this, Daniela, when you're in the room every single day, from training camp all the way through till exit day, as I call it, it's a little melancholy. And what really is great about it is that's where you throw off the everything is basically off the record unless you're doing an official interview, have a microphone in their face, and you spend a lot of time conversing with these guys and just BSing and just small talk and getting to know them. Relating to them more on a human level, just not media athlete kind of thing. You talk to them about whatever they're watching on Netflix or whatever. What you do actually throughout the season, you really get to know them. So it'll be interesting to see, instead of obviously having the whole team available today, to have Jeff Blashill, who obviously is going to talk about Steve Yzerman saying that he's coming back. Dylan Larkin, I would anticipate, is going to be asked about being named captain. And then Luke Glendening, who always puts it in perspective. I mean, he might have been wearing a letter for the first year this year, but he wore letters. He capped a 2-year captain in Michigan, plus an alternate captain as a sophomore. So I'm looking forward to it. But again, my heart's a little heavy today, Daniela, because I know the season's over, and several of the guys that I've covered for a long time, if you believe the speculation, rumor, and innuendo, which we all thrive on, that several of these guys are not going to be back, and I'm not going to be able to say. Sounds corny, I know, but I'm not going to be able to say goodbye or shake their hand and thank them for everything.
Well, Art, hopefully they see that, because I'm sure they would appreciate the heartfelt message for them. And I know things are a little weird. Everything's a little bit weird right now, but hopefully we can move forward from this. And as you said, it's unfortunate that it's the end of the Red Wings season, but for them, this kind of means it's time to look ahead. And you also mentioned that Steve Yzerman said that Coach Blashill will be back next year in his press conference yesterday. So that brings us to our first topic of the Big Three presented by Chevy, which is the Steve Yzerman press conference as a whole. And we'll start right there, Art, because one of the biggest takeaways was the fact that Jeff Blashill will be back to coach the Red Wings for at least one more season. And what do you make of that decision?
Well, I think Steve basically said it in February, and he's been consistent all year long. Look, when Steve Yzerman took the job on April 19th, 2019, he could have done whatever he wanted. I mean, if he would have gone in and negotiated his deal, he could have said, listen, Blash is a nice enough guy, but, I got to pick my own coach. I'm sure that would have happened. So he's, been aware of Jeff Blashill, watched him. Remember, Tampa Bay competed against the Red Wings, so they're in the same division. So he's seen Blashill as a coach. He knows his own coach in Tampa, John Cooper. They're very good friends, John Cooper and Jeff Blashill. So he knows what he's getting. I'm sure he talked to Coop about it. So, worst kept secret in the NHL. Guess what? I'm going back to Detroit. Hey, what can you tell me about Blash? I know that you guys are really good friends. So, the way I look at it from that aspect, Steve Yzerman has been comfortable with Jeff Blashill from day one. Steve Yzerman, what makes him a great captain and also makes him a great executive is that he is level-headed. He's able to be very analytical, look at the situation, and figure it out. He knows Blashill is, the team, is void of talent. And that, my old expression, even Jesus and the 12 apostles probably couldn't turn the Red Wings around, and they can perform miracles, or I guess at least Jesus could. So, I mean, if you look at it that way, I mean, this is a tough situation for him. Steve realized it. He likes what they've done. Some of the younger players have gotten better. So I think where the Red Wings are at right now, Jeff Blashill is the right coach for them. Steve's comfortable with him, and I think he's reiterated that from April 19th through what was yesterday, the 26th or something of May. I mean, he's been consistent in his message about that, Jeff Blashill. Nobody should be surprised that Steve is retaining him or exercising the club option for this next upcoming season, whenever that may be.
Well, Art, how about this one? Was this second biggest thing to take away out of that press conference a surprise to you? Steve Yzerman says he plans to name a captain for the 2021 season. And I think the first person on everybody's mind is Dylan Larkin. And I think we would all be really surprised if Dylan Larkin wasn't named that captain before the 2021 season.
Oh, I agree with you. I think somewhere you've probably heard this before, Daniela. This is Dylan Larkin's team. And because it's Dylan Larkin's team, I think you have to look at it. No, I know you haven't. Because it is Dylan Larkin's team, he should be the captain. I think when you talk to individual Red Wing players on the record and off the record, they will say consistently, night in and night out, he is their best player, meaning he's their most complete player. He plays both ends of the ice. He has a 200-foot game. He's from Michigan. He has a lot of pressure on him because he's a local product. He wants to be a Red Wing. He wants this team to get better. I think Steve Yzerman, when asked by our very own Dana Wakiji yesterday during the Zoom press conference, what do you think of Dylan? You could tell that Steve, who did not know him very well, wasn't even at his combine, I guess, when Dylan's draft year in 2015, but really said, I got to know him. I know he cares. I know he has the passion. He wants to win. Certainly sounded like Steve was describing a captain yesterday.
All right, Art, and another thing that stuck out from the press conference was the fact that Steve Yzerman said that he is going to find a way to get a deal done with, restricted free agents, Anthony Mantha and Tyler Bertuzzi. And I think he said, he didn't specifically mention anymore, but he said there were a couple of other players that he expects to get deals done with. He just obviously doesn't know the details of those deals. And I think that's great news for Red Wings fans. We're going to see Tyler Bertuzzi and Anthony Mantha in a Red Wings jersey next year.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, when you're doing a rebuild, that doesn't mean, well, we're in a rebuild, we're constantly tearing the thing down. I mean, you find your pieces and then you build around them, obviously. I mean, I'm saying an obvious statement here, but that's the way it has to go. So with that being said, the BT Express is here to stay. He told us the other day on Tuesday's show that he wants a long-term deal. He wants to stay here. Big Tony's going nowhere. Bertuzzi, same thing. Tyler Bertuzzi, the Red Wings are like maneuvered some trading and with draft picks in that second round. I think he was the second player taken in that second round, but he was the guy that they've always targeted, that they always wanted. And I can remember everybody saying to them, hey,
but it is time to go live to the press conference. Coach Jeff Blashill is about to talk his season-ending press conference for the 1920 season, delivered to you guys by Little Caesars. Let's take a look.
Go down the list in order we receive them. In order to reduce any audio interference, please mute your microphone to ask a question, and remember to mute again once you've asked your question. Secondly, if you want to record, you can do so the icon on the bottom of your screen. I'm currently going through the list to give users access to record. So if you see a message that says the host needs to give you permission, let us know in the chat. We'll make sure we've granted permission. And lastly, once we've wrapped up each session, all attendees will be placed back in the waiting room until the next one begins. So recommend just staying connected during that time so you don't miss the beginning of the next guest. So if anyone does have any issues, just contact a member of our staff once we're finished, and we'll be able to send you a complete recording. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll have our first question from St. James with the Detroit Free Press.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Great, Helene.
Just wanted to ask about, it sounds like Gary said Tuesday layoff. That league is prepared to wait till as late as January to start next season. How do you deal with such a long layoff?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. It's obviously that'll be, from mid-March until sometime later in the year for certain if we are able to play this year. And I think, the one thing that's important in any of this in our decision making is that we're fluid and flexible, because we don't really know exact dates like you would for a normal year. So we're going to have to be really good about being both fluid and flexible. And making adjustments as needed, as the NHL will continue to make its best decision it can. I've had some discussion with some of the players about this. I know there is some concerns amongst the players that it's a big disadvantage in a sense of the 7 teams that are off. Those individual players, forget the teams, just as individual players going that long without an organized practice, with coaches going at full speed and stuff like that. So I'm hoping, we can look towards some creative solutions with the NHL. I can't, those conversations, though, we're obviously are and have been on the back burner until the return to play protocol was put in place and those decisions were made. So we'll see as the summer goes along. We'll work within the parameters that the NHL gives us. We'll try to be as creative as we can be to make sure that our players aren't at a disadvantage when the puck does drop next year.
And secondly, just I'm sure you heard Steve yesterday. This is a very results-driven business, and coaches often first in firing line when he has repeatedly said he doesn't hold you responsible for the record. And it sounds like that you two didn't even have a meeting at the end of the season addressing your future. What does it mean to you to have that kind of support?
Well, it certainly means a lot. I've told you guys this as the years gone along. I mean, I've had real clear conversations with Steve. What I like working for Steve is he tells me exactly the parameters with which I'm working from. I think we're all in our organization trying to take a long-term approach to get this organization to the level that we all want it to be. Everybody on this call, I think, would like to see it, and that's to that championship level, and that takes time and doesn't happen overnight. So certainly to have to know that to have Steve's confidence is great, and I look forward to the challenges that are ahead of us.
Thank you.
All right, our next question will be Daniela Bruce from the Word on Woodward.
Hi, Coach. Good to see you.
You too.
So as mentioned, Steve Yzerman has confirmed his plans to bring you back next year as head coach. And obviously a lot of uncertainty of when that will be for the Red Wings. But what can you take away from a season like this with an ending that nobody could predict that will help you next season?
Well, the ending aside, I mean, this was something that obviously we're living in unprecedented times, at least in our lifetimes. And we're all there's been certain struggles that this has created. Now, none of which are close to the struggles that a number of people in real life are going through. And I'm just real thankful, for my health, for my family's health, for my parents' health. But that aside, certainly the year ended in an abrupt manner that has never really happened before. I just look at the season in total. Like, it was a hard year. We had a bad year and it was hard. But I do think sometimes your best growth comes through struggle. And if it's always easy, it's hard to really grow to the level that you need to grow. And so sometimes it's struggle that ultimately produces the best growth. Now, that's not easy to live, and nobody plans that. But I'm sure most of you on this call, you can look back to times where you went through struggles, and it's made you, a better reporter, a better person, a better whatever today. And certainly I have, and will continue. And so I look forward to the chance to have grow from the struggles that we've been through, both throughout the season, and then also the fact how the season ended and how it was, I guess, abruptly ended. So we look forward to that. And continue to grow from those struggles.
Thank you, Coach.
Next question will be Max Boltman with The Athletic.
Hey, Jeff, how's it going? Sorry, my video's not working for some reason.
That's fine with me, Max.
I thought so. I was just curious, how much in a normal off season are you able to be on the ice, if at all, with guys? Is that something you're able to do normally? Or I know you kind of hinted that maybe there might be something creative with the NHL, but is that a possibility at all later?
I can't answer that. I can only tell you that I certainly would like to, and I actually think our players would as well. But there's lots that go into that. Per the CBA, we really have no contact on the ice with our players during the off season at all. Other sports have certain periods of time where they do. Specifically, I guess I'd say football. And some of that's voluntary. But per the CBA, up till now, we just haven't had any chance to do that. And I don't know that it's necessarily been needed. Now, this is obviously we're living in totally different times, and this layoff is as long a layoff as any of our guys will have ever had, outside of barring a long-term injury. So I think both the players that are especially within these 7 teams, and the staffs and the management, we'll hope to look towards some creative solutions. And I can't answer what those would be, but I think it's important that we look towards that now that we're moving on, and have this return to play protocol. There has, I want to do everything we can to make sure that we're as ready as individuals and as a team for next season. And so I'm hoping we get some different opportunities than maybe we've had in the past.
For sure. And then with how many young players you guys have, what do they lose by not having kind of the game reps? I mean, I know it's only 11 or whatever it was at the end of the season, but also the, potentially 8-9 months between games. What do they lose in game reps, those young guys, whether it's, someone like Zadina or Lindstrom or whoever?
Well, one way to grow is experience, and experience is something that you can't teach. You have to live it. And so, not having those game reps takes away from that chance at experience. Now, we're not alone in that. There's other teams that are in that boat, but certainly just from our own perspective, you can't replicate that experience. There's no way to get that to your guys in any other fashion. And, just beyond, even though it's 11 games for us, it was also a potential playoffs for the Grand Rapids Griffins, where you gain that experience of going through the playoffs, of playing playoff series of best of 5, then best of 7, stuff like that. So, I do think that's what's lost. Now, what can be gained from it, I also think is important to look at. And, we'll have a unique situation to add strength, to add to maximize our bodies to degrees that we normally wouldn't have opportunities once we all can get back on the ice on a regular basis, once players can to put in the hours that are needed to acquire certain skills, and to put those kind of repetitive drills in place and practice them over and over so that guys can acquire those new skills. So I think it also gives us a great opportunity to have more time than ever to maximize their bodies and to maximize their games. And that's what we're going to have to look at. And that's what's going to be really important for our young players.
And then last thing from me, Steve talked yesterday about how he feels like, the team needs to improve in basically every position area of it. Is there an area that you felt really strongly like this is the area of the team that really needs to improve in the off season, or are you kind of similarly across the board?
Well, I would say similar across the board. I mean, part of my job is to narrow the focus, and we'll do that as we get into next year. But I think right now it's just improve across the board as much as we can, and improve with the individuals that we have returning to our team, with our young players that have the potential to make our team. Certainly improve at some point when free agency becomes available. If we can improve a little bit that way, we all know it's really hard to improve your team through free agency alone. So I think the growth of our people and our organization is extremely important, and taking advantage of the time that we have right now to grow is critically important.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, our next question will be Mike Stone from 97.1 The Ticket.
Yeah, Coach. Good to see you again. Two things. First, do you anticipate your coaching staff coming back as whole? And if not, who won't be there? And defensively, was it personnel, scheme, combination? What do you think, triggered such a poor defensive performance by you guys this past year?
What? I'm on a Zoom. Do you have something important?
Do I answer that one or just your question?
No, I don't have any.
Lee.
This is great. What's the
No,
fine? Hit mute on Okay, so let me get back to the coaching staff to start with. First off, I think we have some really talented coaches on our staff. Dan Bylsma's won a Stanley Cup as a head coach. Doug Huda's won a Stanley Cup as an assistant coach. Adam Nightingale's an extremely bright young coach. Our video coaches do a great job. Jeff Saleko, our goalie coach, I think does an excellent job. So I think we have a great coaching staff and great people in place here. I have not had an opportunity, as Steve said yesterday, to really sit down and review all aspects of our program the way that we always do at the end of the year with Steve, and we're going to in the near future. And so, I would just say that as we review everything, I'll have those answers. But right now, I can tell you that they did a really good job in really hard circumstances to continue to come to the rink every day and try to push our team to be better and try to find solutions. And I thought our coaching staff did an excellent job that way. In terms of our defensive play, I'll just speak to what I can control, and that's the habits of our players. That's the structure of our team. I was disappointed. We made a change mid-season in our D-zone coverage scheme. And it's a really, really difficult thing to make a change in the middle of the season to your schematics. And I would say for about 2 months, it took us a while to get to where we wanted to be. And you build habits over time. And when you switch a scheme, those habits then need to change. And so, again, I think it took us a little while to get that structure in a better place. I thought by the end of the year, it was where we wanted to be. I think we had some building blocks for the future in how we play D-zone coverage. I wish we could have had the 11 games or so to be able to do that, but we didn't. But so that would be one answer in terms of schematics, and then we just got to continue to pound on our fundamentals and habits of our players and make sure that individually their fundamentals and habits are maximized, and we'll continue to do that.
Our next question will be Dana Wakiji with DetroitRedWings.com.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Jeff. I was curious as to know what you thought the growth was from some of your players. Like, where did you see the most growth and in whom? Like, I'm thinking of guys like Hronek and also maybe Larkin, Bertuzzi, those type of guys.
Well, some of it I think we'll see in future years. I talked about the growth from struggle and that sometimes that's your best growth. And I think it's hard to see where that direct growth is until you learn from those trials and tribulations and you apply them in the future. I would say certainly, Hronek had an opportunity to have a lot of ice time, was in a really expanded role. When we lost Danny DeKeyser, basically for the season early on, that really put Phillip into an even more expanded role. And I thought he did a good job with it. I thought he managed it. Now I do think there was ups and downs. And I think when you get that much, that early in your career, you're going to go through some dry spells where your game isn't where you need it to be, and there's no safety net because of the thinness that we had back there. So, but I do think certainly he's one that I thought grew. Philip Zadina had an opportunity to come in and play pretty good minutes, and until he got hurt, I thought he was doing a good job, and I thought he was starting to take steps in the right direction. He looked more confident. He looked more dangerous as an offensive player. I think he does a pretty good job of defensive responsibility, but I wanted to see a more dangerous offensive player, and I think as the year went on, we saw that without taking unneeded risk, and so that's a growth part with him. Certainly, Matt this year was tough because of all the injuries, so that was a really difficult season for him. I thought Larks and Bert, they had to grind through this year, and again, that doesn't, you don't succeed every day. There's days where you're trying to grind through and you struggle, and I just think it's going to really help those guys with the perspective, with the focus of what they want to do to make sure that we don't live through another season like that, and that we start taking those little steps forward from a bad team to working our way to becoming a respectable team, and then taking those steps forwards to working your way to becoming a good team, and then little steps forwards working your way ultimately to go from good to great. And it's not one giant leap. And I think guys that were important parts of our team had to really grind through it. And I think when you grind through it, you come out the other side and you can look back, you learn from that.
All right, our next question will be from Ansar Khan with M Live.
Hi, Jeff. Got a couple questions about a couple of your younger prospects. First, Svechnikov. Big year for him next season. He's out of options. What do you see his potential? Can he be a top 6 player in the NHL who can score? And the other guy is Seider. What would he have to show you next season in training camp to make the team?
Well, I think with Svech, I think first thing Svech has to do is he has to find a way to earn his way, one, on the team, and then earn his way into minutes. And then as he earns those opportunities, then we can start seeing how high can he go. But you have to start by one, making the team, and then earning more and more minutes. And those aren't handed out to anybody. And you got to go and you got to find a way to make yourself a good player, and it starts by certainly earning trust, which I think Svech has worked really hard at his game. The one thing with Svech is he's an extremely hard-working person. He works extremely hard in practice. He works extremely hard off the ice. He wants to be a great player. He's an outstanding kid who wants to be really good. He's got a good skill set with his ability to shoot a puck, and so I hope he can become a guy who's a top 6 type scorer, and time will tell on that, and we'll give him the opportunity to earn his way on and earn those minutes. So we'll see, and the same would be said for Seider. I think Sides had a really, really good year in totality. Now it was a learning year, and there was ups and downs. And when you're a defenseman, it's really hard. I talked about one of the things that we're losing here is experience, and experience is impossible to manufacture. And I think through the experience of the season, on defense, I think experience matters tons, because you're basically asked to go out there and make a good decision every split second. And if you make a bad decision, it really shows. Whereas a forward, you can get away with some bad decisions. So as a D-man, you can't. And I think the experience as he went through the season of learning, especially for him, because he wants to, he attacks the game, and he attacks the game at times in an offensive manner, and that's awesome. But part of that is learning not to bite off more than you can chew, when to take the opportunity to make a play, and when to live another day. And I think he did. As I go back and watch games here late in the season with the Griffins, I think he really did a much better job of that late in the year than he did early in the year. So it looked like the experience that he gained through the years made him a better player. I think he's got a chance to be a really good, impactful defenseman. Can he do it next year? I hope so. He's got, as we spoke of earlier, he might have as many as 8 months to get himself prepared, to improve his body, to turn his body from a young guy's body into an elite pro body. He's got a chance to work on the ice to improve the different skills in his game, and add more to his arsenal, so that he can come and demand that he's on the team. So like any young player, he'll have to earn it. Both guys will, and we'll see.
The next question is from Brad Galley with WXYZ.
Jeff, first I want to commend you on your backdrop. Not a single wrinkle. Nice job ironing that out.
Thank you. My wife, we worked on that hard.
I'll go the opposite way. Obviously, there's so much hope and so much of the youth in the roster. But for some of the guys that are on the tail end of their career, maybe at the end of it, the abrupt ending and kind of the reality over the last few months that this might be the end, and that they didn't get a proper way to say goodbye to the game. Guys like, I don't want to make assumptions without them making it formal, but Jimmy Howard, Jonathan Erickson, maybe even Trevor Daley, depending on how much they have left in the tank. How much conversation have you had with a few of those guys, and how tough is it from a coaching perspective to see their careers potentially end this way?
Well, first off, and I don't want to get into specifics because I don't know the plans for any of the players. I've had no discussions with anybody that's informed me that they're going to decide to hang up the skate, so to speak. But in a general statement, what I would say is, I think life is about experiences. That's what I think life's about. You have some great shared experiences, and I think when something like this happens, where there's an abrupt end to the season, you don't get that chance to, if you are a player who is going to play his last game for the Red Wings and it meant a lot to you throughout your career, you don't get a chance to kind of have that moment, and that sucks. And there's no other way to put it. It's no different than the graduating seniors in around the country, whether it's college, whether it's high school. They don't get those opportunities to share to have those experiences that normally you would. My son's an 8th grader. He doesn't get a chance to have that 8th grade graduation, and those are just shared experiences that are a huge part of life. I really think that. But again, I think part of this also, what we've gone through should add to perspective. And I talk a lot about perspective to our team all the time. And, I think it's important to cherish the opportunities you have. Playing in the NHL is an unbelievable opportunity. Coaching in the NHL, being part of this league, is something that should never be taken for granted, something that you should cherish and enjoy every day. Sometimes when you don't win enough, you don't enjoy it, and as much as you should. And I think that perspective is really important. I think if this has done anything for all of us, it should give us better perspective in our life, that how important it is to live every day to the fullest that we can. So, I do think it's too bad for guys that are going to be done, whose careers are going to be over, that they didn't have that moment to just kind of say goodbye and finish their career in the way that they would have envisioned. But I'm sure they're thankful for the many years, that they had the opportunity to play in this league and play for the Detroit Red Wings.
Our next question is from Carly Johnston with Red Wings TV.
Hey, Coach. How's it going?
It's going great, Carly.
Good to see everyone. Okay, 2 quick questions. First, obviously no one wants to see their season end abruptly and watch other teams return to play. But at the end of the day, are you just happy to see the game of hockey return after this long pause?
Yeah, I'm about out on Netflix, so I look forward to being able to watch something else. It's been unfortunate. It's been hard on everybody, a lot harder on other people than certainly than us, and I respect that a ton. But yeah, it'll be fun to just have hockey get back. We were hoping that we could be part of it in some way, just to get together as a group, just to skate, just to kind of coach and play again. But we're not going to be able to have that opportunity, and that's okay. But at least we'll get a chance to watch, and so that'll be pretty neat.
Okay, and how detrimental do you think this is to the development of players, especially someone like Filip Zadina, who played well before his injury and before the season abruptly ended?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, I think with Filip, in any of our young players, they are going to lose some of. Filip was hurt, so when he was able to get back, would he have been able to play a little bit potentially? But in the end, he's going to lose some of that experience, and that's too bad. But I do think what we need to do, and I've talked about this lots this year, is try to be as solution based as possible, and part of that is trying to take advantage of this time. And I do think. Even without the last couple months where there's been so much uncertainty and players didn't have access that they normally would to ice or to strength training opportunities, as those start to open up, hopefully again, and players have that type of access, boy, it's a good amount of chunk of time to get better. And so we just gotta, the best way to make your team better is for every individual to get a little bit better. That's what pushes your ceiling up. And so we got to take this opportunity for each guy to try to push their game to another level.
Thanks, Coach.
Our next question is from Trevor Thompson with Fox Sports Detroit.
Good to see you, Black. Everything's going well with your family. A couple of things for you. What are your thoughts, first of all, on the return to play and the playoff format? As a fan and as a coach, even observing this, what's your excitement level for it? How do you think the league, the fan base will react to what they're going to see as far as this format goes?
Well, I'd start by saying, and I really mean this, I think the NHL has done a really good job of working through the challenges that we're all facing. And I think they've done a really good job of staying patient. There's no easy answer. I think you could make arguments a lot of different ways on any of these decisions that the NHL has been forced to make. And that's what it means to make decisions. Generally, you have to make it, and there's going to be pluses and minuses. And what I would say is I think in the end, we're going to get a chance to see some great hockey. I think it's going to showcase the NHL the way it should be showcased. I think it's going to make for exciting, I don't know what they call the first part of it, but it's a series, and it's going to make for exciting series. I think it'll lead to hopefully a great playoff. And I know, when you've gone through, it'll be basically 2 months of trying to win round after round and work your way to the Stanley Cup. Whoever wins it will be deserved of it. So I think it's great for hockey, and I think it gives a chance to showcase hockey in different months than we normally do.
Second question goes to our return to play and when you guys get back on the ice. Obviously with hockey, I know you coach a lot of kids. Your kids are involved in the game. Your players run camps. They give away sticks. They sign autographs. Just the connection that they have face-to-face with fans. Personally, how much do you think that'll change for you? How will you change the way you approach that? And how do you think the league will change the way it approaches that and how it might affect the overall game, the growth of the game?
It's a good question, Trevor, and it's interesting. I talked earlier about life's about experience. It's about emotion. It's about sharing those experiences, and a lot of times it's sharing the emotion of wins and losses, not just with your team, but with the fans and the fan base, and that's what makes it great. I watched Hoosiers the other night with my youngest son, and to see the fans come out of the stands in 1952 or whatever, and they're hugging each other, and everybody's on the court. Those are great moments, and that's living, and that's awesome. That's what we all want. We all want to be able to get to those highs. You got to have the lows, and we've experienced a lot of the lows, but that's what makes sports great, is those shared experiences. So we'd love to get back to that. And I don't know how. I don't know if it's going to look a little bit different, but I know it's it's an integral part of why we play sports. It's more than just entertainment on a screen. It's being involved with the interaction between the fans and the athletes and the coaches. So somehow, some way, we have to continue to capture that. Will it be different? It probably. But we have to find ways to capture that, and we'll see. We'll see what it's a new day every day as we learn more about this virus, and hopefully we can get to a point to where we can all get back closer to where we were 3 months ago, 4 months ago, to that normal. But I know without a shadow of a doubt, the integration of fans and emotions in athletes is integral to sport, and it's gotta at some point we have to find ways to make sure that happens.
My last thing for you, Blash, is do you have a personal story along the way of someone might have contracted the disease, or a hero along the way you want to recognize, but just a personal story you've come across over the last couple of months that you could relate to us as far as how this might have touched you?
I've known a couple that have had this virus, and certainly they both been able to get by it, and they're doing well today. And what I would say with that is they were definitely sick, and as I think the quote to me was as sick as they've ever been 10 times over. So it's a dangerous virus, and for those that have had it, it's not fun. The one thing I would commend is my oldest sister, Lisa, actually is in charge of a number of counties up near Traverse City's health department. She runs the health departments up there, and they've had a lot of challenges from day one. And when our league got shut down, she went into overdrive. And very proud of everything that I've been told of how they've worked, how they've handled it, trying to make sure that they keep it contained. The northern part of Michigan is different than down here, and it's different in the sense that the same medical resources aren't available, but yet a lot of times, and I'm sure that happened a little bit this weekend, their population grows an enormous amount, and so they have a lot of challenges. So really proud of the job that my sister's done. She's had to make hard decisions. She's had to have people disagree with her. She's had to have people second guess her decisions. That's what making decisions is about. And you don't always make the perfect ones, especially when the world around you is changing. But you got to make them, and you got to move forward. And I know the people I've talked to up there said she's done a great job. So real proud of her.
Thanks, Blash. Good to see you, and stay safe.
You too.
Our next question is from Ted Culfin with the Detroit News. Hey, Ted, your microphone might be muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Just like the phone commercial. All right. Jeff, Steve talked yesterday about naming a captain prior to the season or whatnot. How important is that for a hockey team just to have a leader like that, to have a guy wearing the C?
Well, I'll start just by saying leadership's critical. I think the way you ultimately win in anything, but certainly in sports, is with talent and character. You need both, and you need your best players to be your greatest winners, and so leadership matters a bunch. There's no doubt about it. Now, wearing a letter or not wearing a letter doesn't necessarily dictate that you can lead or that you do lead. How you act, how you go about trying to get the most out of those around you, how you handle yourself professionally every day. That's leadership. That's real leadership. Certainly, I understand the significance of the C, and it's placed certainly in history, especially with an organization like the Detroit Red Wings. And I think that's part of the reason why when Steve understands it. And when Steve came in last year, in our conversations, he just said he wanted to observe, and I get that 100%. I respect that for sure. So, I heard his comments yesterday as well, and him and I will sit down over the course of the next little bit here, and we'll talk about everything. Like I said, with our coaching staff, we'll talk about everything to do with our hockey team, and certainly captaincy will be part of that. And I think the biggest thing is making sure that when you do give somebody a letter, whether it's a C or an A, that they're ready for it, and that they're the right people, the right person in that job. And so I think it can really help a team when you have great leadership. I've gone through a ton of Zoom calls with a bunch of coaches, and the word culture gets thrown around a lot. And really, if you really dive into it, what culture generally is, what happens with culture is your best players are your best winners. And if your best players are your best winners, special things happen. So I think we certainly have some guys that I think are capable of being great leaders, that have been great leaders through extraordinarily difficult, tough times. And, I think when that decision's made, it'll be made with a thorough process and make sure that it's done right.
Jeff, early on, the audio was a little choppy, so I didn't get all of the response, but just the 9-month layoff, what concerns you most about that? You figure these guys haven't been skating for 3 or 4 months. There won't be any summer leagues probably to jump into. Do you just lose your timing and your hockey edge in that respect, or what?
Yes. And I think that's a huge concern. I know I've talked to some of our players, and just, it's one thing to do training sessions with you and a couple of players, and certainly there's huge benefit to that and your skill acquirement and things like that. But, hockey's played with people at an incredible pace. It's a chaotic game. There's lots of things going on around you. And if you don't experience that for a long period of time, you're not training your body to make those decisions. Really what hockey comes down to more than anything else is making a whole bunch of good decisions very, very quickly. And you got to be forced into those positions to make sure that you're trained and ready to make those decisions, whether it's a goalie having to make reads, having to see through traffic, whether it's a forward making sure he shoulder checks, knowing what he's going to do with the puck before he gets it so he can make the proper play, taking a hit, the physicality involved, all that stuff. And you can't replicate that really without real practices or games. That's the only way you even come close to it. So we'll see. We'll see what the parameters are in place from the National Hockey League and the Players Association, and ultimately our guys are going to have to do everything they can to try to find ways, even if it's in smaller areas and you don't have as many skaters as you'd like, playing 3-on-3 in tight areas, things like that, to try to find ways to do that to get themselves as ready for next season as possible.
Thanks, Jeff.
The next question is from Nick Katsunika with NHL.com.
Hey, Jeff. Hope you're well. You've touched on a bunch of this you just did, but I'm kind of curious your process of how you take advantage of the opportunity this offseason. Like when you design an offseason program, usually how long it's going to be, so you can structure it that way. So like now you don't know how long it's going to be. You don't know what the circumstances are for each player. So how do you design programs for guys? How much do Horkoff and Cleary do that? How much do guys have their own personal trainers? So how do you approach this? Do you even know?
Well, I won't say that I know everything. Like there's so many unknowns involved in this, and it's certainly, as you said, it's a new experience for all of us. But what we'll do is utilize our people in our organization. So starting with our strength coach, Rob Campbell, our sports science group, the Barwis group, and we've already done this, come up with plans individually based on what is available to the player at the time, to start to train. Now, as you said, especially in the last month, we didn't know for sure if we were training to come back in skate in June. We didn't know for sure if we're coming back in September, and now we don't know if we're coming back potentially, I don't know, November, December. So that's certainly been, Commissioner Bettman's thrown that around. So we don't have the exact timeline in place, but we do know now that we're not going to be playing hockey games for a while. So now we can really look at, with our strength and conditioning staff, how can we maximize each guy's body? At the end of the season, what we've done is we've basically said, okay, here's their strengths, here's their weaknesses, and here's the fire starter, the couple things that they got to get better at to maximize their body, and that'll push the rest of their body to get to that elite or to maintain the elite level. So whether you're a young player or an older player. And so we'll do that with our strength coach, and then we'll work with our development staff. And you mentioned Torx and Cleary, and then Brandon Naranjo is a consultant with our development staff as well, who does a great job. And same idea. We've worked on individual plans with each guy. I've actually had Zoom calls with the players where we talked about this is the areas that when we do get access to that ice this summer. Summer's the one time when you can really add skill sets to your game. You can get enough of those repetitive hours in to add skill sets, to add different skills to your game. And so we'll utilize that time on an individual basis. One player might need to learn to one-time the puck a little bit better. So let's master that skill over the course of the summer. And we feel like that skill, whatever that skill is for each guy, is the fire starter for their game that's going to really help their game get to the next level or maintain greatness, one of those two. So we'll attack it with our staff. Our coaching staff's involved in that as well, but not on an on-ice basis, but coming up with those plans and then just continuing to monitor it. And ultimately, I think I read somewhere Steve said something to this effect. I'm a huge believer in players have to want it. They have to have that inner drive, that unbelievable motivation. That's what the best players do. Well, this is going to test and show which guys do and which guys don't more than ever before, because we'll be able to, for lack of a better word, kind of hold their hand less than ever. And they're going to be creative of how they attack getting better here. And the guys that really want it will find ways.
That leads me to my follow-up, was the mental part. Like, is mental come into this at all? And do you try to mimic any competition? You have no competition now. So do you have fitness competition internally, anything like that to kind of mimic that?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And that's part of, something that we've never kind of been in this spot that as a coaching staff, we'll do some brainstorming on is there ways that we can do that we can put in place competitions that are real enough without it being something where people are just turning scores and they're not necessarily real. So we'll certainly look into that as one way. We believe competition drives people to be their best. So that's certainly one of the avenues that we'll look at. So the mental side of it, and just the mental, I think there's mental health, there's sports performance capacity, and finding ways to become the best mentally you can be for sports, and they're kind of separate. And I think it's in a time in our lives where it's real important to continue to check on our players, make sure they're doing well in both of those areas, and we will do that as well.
Thank you.
The next question is from Art Regner with the Word on Woodward.
Thank you very much there, Kyle. Hello, Jeff. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I have a couple of questions. I want to go back to your days as a college recruiter, and I would like to know, because of these unprecedented times, have you had more time to study this year's prospects, specifically in the draft? You're going to get a high draft pick. Will you have more input on whom the Red Wings may or may not select at number 4 or whatever it may be?
Art, was that you? Is that you that gets fined?
It may, but I'm just going on past history. You know how that works.
Okay. So what this is the first thing I'd say, and this is the reality of scouting in the NHL is generally speaking, the coaches in the NHL don't have nearly the say that they do in other sports. Certainly football, they're a huge part of the process of who they pick. In basketball, I think even to a greater degree they are than in hockey. But that's for a reason. Hockey is spread throughout the globe. We pick players from such a multitude of levels. It's incomparable, really. We have guys playing high school hockey. We have guys playing pro hockey in the KHL. And the reason I say that's important is because unless you see everything, it's hard to really, really give an opinion that is well grounded and based on fact. And so, generally speaking, coaches haven't had big impact on who the players pick, not just here, but just across the league. I offered Chris Draper runs our scouting department. Him and the scouts have worked extraordinarily hard. The one thing you have during this time that you can't see live actions, you do get the opportunities to go back and watch players on video and in that. And certainly, I've had conversations with Drapes and I've told them I will do anything I can to help us make the best decisions we can and give any opinions that I have. And obviously they would then take those opinions with a grain of salt. In the sense that I haven't seen everybody and I haven't seen the players live, and it does make a difference. I do believe in the power of video scouting is a great tool, but it does not replace live scouting. So, Japes and I've had some of those conversations. I've watched some of those players, but I would leave it at that.
When you look at the situation that you're in right now, I know you coach in the AHL. There's all kinds of speculation. You know that it is a fan-driven league as far as revenue. Are you a little bit worried that they may not be able to come back if yet they can't play in front of fans? And how will that impact the Griffins? Because you have several prospects, obviously, on that roster.
Well, that's a big question. There's so many unknowns with that. If the American League teams couldn't play, that would be that has an impact on everybody. I mean, the one thing it would be fair across the board. Certainly, we're all fan-driven leagues, to be honest with you, and attendance matters in hockey. Both the American League certainly is 100%, but the same is true in the NHL. And ultimately, we'll need attendance to continue to thrive. It might look a little bit different. There might be more that goes into it. I don't know those answers. But ultimately, at some point, the American League is going to play it, and it'll be fair across the board, and every team will have the same opportunity, and every team's prospects will have the same opportunities. But certainly, it's a critical part of the young guys' development.
I know Steve yesterday talked about a captain, naming a captain before the next season, whenever that begins. Will you have much say and input on that? Will that be a long discussion? How will that process unfold?
Steve and I discuss every aspect of our hockey team, and we have at different times throughout the season, every aspect, and certainly even through this quarantine period, we certainly have. We'll dig into every aspect, as I said earlier, about our team. When we can spend more time meeting as a group. Like, the one thing I would say is, we've been as this thing's gone on, we've had lots of time, but honestly, we've had to prepare as if we are going to come back, because until somebody says you're not, you have to prepare like you are. And that was the most pressing thing. So we've really, although we've looked at some things and done some things from a kind of year-end perspective, the reality is we've also kind of been in mode of let's make sure this is what we're going to do if we come back, and been prepared that way. So Steve and I will be able to sit down. We'll have good conversations about everything, including the captaincy.
All right, our last question for Blash will be John Neal from the Detroit News.
Hey, Jeff. With Larkin specifically, I wonder what you thought and you saw in terms of leadership this season, and maybe what you think he learned from what you called a bad season, a hard season, obviously.
Well, I think first off, I've had the opportunity to be around Larks for a number of years now in different settings. He wore a letter with us as an assistant captain. He's worn a letter for I think each team I coached at the men's worlds as well. He's got great leadership abilities. I think he's a guy who, I think most of you on this call know what I feel about Dylan Larkin. I think he's a great player, great competitor. He has great inner drive. Is a real asset to our organization. Is going to help grind this organization into better days. And what did he learn? Well, he learned, I don't even know if you can put into words today the things that you learn as you go through those struggles, but you grow and you learn to love the grind. You learn when to show emotion and when to keep your emotion in check. You learn how to, simply how to keep your messaging to keep the team headed in the right direction, and that's very difficult into the times that we've had. So as I said, there was tons of growth for him. I think your outlook on how you come to the rink every day matters, and when it's not going good, it's hard to have that great outlook. And I think he learned to persevere over some of those difficult times and come to the rink with that great outlook that he generally has had. And I think I think his play the second half of the year, if I'm not mistaken, I think his points were a lot better, and I think his play was better. And I think part of that is grinding through those times where it was really difficult, and then overcoming them, and just coming with that fresh attitude every day that I'm going to enjoy and love this grind, and I'm going to love the grind of trying to make this team or help this team become as better and work us towards better days.
Did you see more of that emotion from him internally, behind closed doors, whether it was anger or whatever?
Well, what I would say is Dylan's, he's got fire inside him, and that's one of his best attributes. It's a great thing, and I think with anybody that has lots of fire inside him, you have to learn how to harness that. And I'd rather have that fire than not have that fire. And I think he learned how and when to harness it. And again, that's not always easy, and it's not easy in the spotlight, but I think he did a really good job of it.
All right, thanks everyone. That's all the time we have with Flash today. Flash, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
There you have it, everybody. Red Wings head coach Jeff Blashill. That live look-in was delivered to you by Little Caesars. Little Caesars proudly presents their Little Caesars hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. All right, Art, let's talk a little bit about what Coach Jeff Blashill had to say. I really like the ending comments that he had about Dylan Larkin there and his growth as a leader.
Well, certainly. I think anybody that knows Dylan knows that he, his motor runs high all the time. In a bit, he kind of reminds me of Chris Draper when Chris Draper was a player. There is only one speed on Dylan, and that is overdrive. I think he'll be the first to admit sometimes maybe he has to keep his emotions in check. But I'm not surprised by that. I think the speculation has always been that Blash and Steve, where if they named a captain, Dylan was front and center. I thought he was impressive. If you watched it, and I'm glad we were able to show the whole thing here on the Word on Woodward, is because you could see just Jeff Blashill's impressive. He's bright, he's smart, he has a great hockey mind, and I think that's really what came through. Is that every question that he thought about, he was real rational, and he's able to break it down, and he quickly gets to the answer. He doesn't sit around and BS and give you coach speak. I mean, he speaks from the heart, and I think that's something that really came across. So I like virtually everything he said. Obviously the biggest thing right now, if you're a Red Wing fan, is the fact is this layoff is going to be a long one. And it's going to be a long one, and you can't duplicate skating. You can have the best rollerblades in the world, but you need to be out on that ice. And I think that has been pretty prevalent. I think Steve alluded to it yesterday. I think Jeff alluded to it today, that as soon as they can get the ice up at the Belfour Center and, they meet all the safety and health requirements, which is still priority number one, obviously, I think they're going to try to get the Red Wings, or at least provide them ice so they can you want to come back to Detroit, fellas? If everything's cool, let's get back here and let's start putting the blades on and getting out on the ice.
Just a reminder to everybody, we are waiting for Luke Glendening. He will be joining us live shortly. But Art, another question for you about what Coach Blashill had to say. You mentioned how hard it is to not skate for that long as a hockey player, but he did look at the positive side a little bit, as they will have some time to focus on these guys getting stronger.
Well, right. I mean, they will be physically fit. Let's put it that way. I mean, the Red Wings, when we, I'm thinking about, our good buddy Giovanni Smith. He's probably going to put on 15 pounds of muscle, which is almost scary if you look at it that way. I mean, but yeah, each player, no one knows their body or themselves better than the individual player. So whatever they need to work on, whatever skill that they need, whether it be a one-timer like Blashill said, I am willing to bet that Philip Zadina's shot, which is already outstanding, is going to be, the quote our good friend Kenny Cal, a howitzer. I mean, he is just going to be sitting there firing puck after puck after puck. I mean, the Red Wings, there's going to be a competitive frustration that's going to build up on them. They're going to be watching this 24-team playoff. And then they have the draft, and then, training camp will eventually start. But by the time they play, whether that be in December of next year or in early January when the league may start, I think you're going to see a team that is going to come out of the gate. And, let's put it this way. I hate to be the first team that's going to play the Red Wings unless it's another one of the 6 teams that had that long layoff, because they are going to be, they're going to feel as sweet as toffee and as hot as coffee to get out there. I mean, they're going to want to, they're going to play the game they love, and they're just going to go out there, and it is going to be a Herculean effort. I mean, I think once the Red Wings hit the ice, you're going to see a different team. You're going to see a team that's matured. They're all going to be almost a year older, physically and mentally. So, who knows, depending on how the draft turns out and what Steve does in free agency, and I think they're going to be pretty good.
Well, we're looking at the physical side right now. Another thing Coach Blashill touched on was the mental side of things. They're going to have to grind through this as players. And he said, you're really going to see the guys that want to work hard through this period. Like you said, we don't really know what that period is going to be. We don't even really know what to call it. Off-season plans, whatever it may be, their workouts. They're just going to really have to grind through it mentally. And I think that's a really big thing, because people that aren't professional athletes are really trying to grind through this mentally. So it's definitely going to be a struggle in that aspect too.
Well, there's no doubt. I think that's an excellent point, Daniela. And I can't stress this enough. I think that's why, as soon as it's all the health regulations and everything is met, and things start to open up, if I'm the Red Wings, I think first and foremost, you want them back on the ice. Even if they're not going to play for several months down the road, you still want them back. You try to want to get them together too. Whomever they end up drafting, I think, there's not going to be probably a development camp, but you're going to want to get those guys together. And this AHL story, I know I keep harping on it. People have heard me ask Steve the question, and then Jeff the question today. That's a huge story if they don't have a farm team. If Toledo and Grand Rapids can't open, they're going to have to expand the roster to at least 30. So I think the most important thing from a mental aspect is to get them back together as soon as possible as a team. Let them commiserate as a team. I think mentally, they're used to being together. They're used to being a team. They see their teammates more than they see their families during the season. So I think that is the way that to make sure that they're mentally engaged and not getting depressed and getting frustrated, is to try to get the Red Wings, a semblance of them, together as soon as possible. And that has to be at the Belfour Center.
All right, I hear we're just a few seconds away from going to Luke Glendening live. But before we get to him, I want to ask you, what do you think Luke Glendening is kind of going to have to say, especially since he is the Player Association representative for the Red Wings?
Well, I think hopefully he talks about the negotiations and how it went down. I mean, the Red Wings voted for this, and I think that, if he gives us a little bit of an insight in the process, that'll be great. I mean, Luke is obviously a highly educated man, being a degree holder from the University of Michigan. And so I expect that people are going to see a side of Luke Glendening, who is, a real difficult guy to play, a little bit of an agitator out there on the ice. But I think you're going to see a side where, he's one smart cookie, and I think that's going to come across.
Do you always got to mention Michigan, Art, every single time?
Hey, he wore that C for 2 years. I definitely have a lot of respect for Luke Glendening as a Wolverine.
I know. You're allowed to this time. You're allowed to this time. It's accepted in this situation. All right,
Thank you,
we've got
Daniela.
Luke Glendening. We're going to do this live look-in presented by Motor City Casino Hotel.
All right, our first question will be Larry Lage with the Associated Press.
So, hi there. Thanks for your time. Can you just kind of share what your thoughts and emotions are right now with the season being over and the uncertainty about when it will be able to resume in terms of, you know, getting together your teammates and coaches?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's been a weird time in terms of there's just so much uncertainty. You know, whether it's talks with the PA or, you know, what the league is saying or, you know, what you have conversations with the guys on your team. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty, but, you know, it's like everything, you know, everyone's being affected by this. And, you know, the best thing you can do is just keep putting one foot in front of the other and taking it day by day. And we'll see what happens as it goes.
All right, our next question is from Max Boltman with The Athletic.
Hey, Luke, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. You're the PA rep, right, for the team?
Yep.
So when you're approaching that vote from your standpoint, what were kind of the considerations that you guys felt like you were making? I mean, as a team that would have been, I mean, that did have your season kind of ended by this, were you thinking, you know, what's best for you guys? What's best for the league? What was kind of the thought process guys were working through there?
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, ultimately you have to look at it as what's best for the league. I mean, obviously, you know, we're all competitive. We would love to play and we would love to compete, but what's the best way to do this safely and in a timely manner? You know, I know it's not exactly perfect in everyone's eyes, but you know, the committee worked a long time on that. And, you know, when we ended up voting on the format, you know, we didn't really have a dog in the fight. So it was kind of a weird situation in that, you know, we were out of it. But, you know, we believed in the committee and what they were doing and, you know, thought the work that they had put in was commendable and that they made a great decision.
For sure. Going forward from here, how do you approach this offseason? I imagine this will be a wholly unique offseason in your life.
Yeah, it's very, very weird. You know, here in Michigan with the gyms closed, it's kind of everyone's on their own at this moment and trying to figure that out. But you know, part of it, you could look at it either way. It could be up to 9 months without hockey, but also it's a great time to. Oops, sorry, dropped my phone. Great time to reset. A great time to, you know, to get back into. So, you know, if you're missing something, whether that's you need to rehab a shoulder or an ankle or a knee or a hip, you know, it's time for that. And, you know, hopefully we'll come back better than ever.
Thanks.
Our next question is from Dana Wakiji with DetroitRedWings.com.
Hi, Luke. Good to see you.
Yeah.
My camera's not working, but just out of curiosity, as you look back on what happened this past season, what do you take from it, especially in light of the fact that you are now wearing an A this season?
I mean, I think the best way to, I mean, it was frustrating. There's no doubt about that. You know, we didn't have a great season as a team. I didn't have a great season personally. You know, we didn't accomplish anything that we wanted to. You know, so I think, you know, it's hard to not have these last 10 games to, you know, kind of get yourself going for the next year. But also this time off, you know, we realize that we're, you know, when they add teams to the playoffs, we're still not even close to getting in. So I think it's a great time to reset and hopefully come back with a new attitude next year.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Ansar Khan with M Live.
Hi, Luke. Can you talk a little bit about the growth that you've seen from Dylan this year in terms of his leadership, just experiencing this frustrating season and all the losing? Was there any particular moment, any particular game where he said something or anything behind the scenes that stood out, where you saw that he did take a significant leap in that leadership ability?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first and foremost, every night, well, no matter the outcome, he was facing the media, answering questions, about the shortcomings of our team. And I thought that he handled that with grace, which is not an easy thing to do at his age. But I think he led the way most nights for us, was our best player, worked hard, competed, did things the right way. And there were multiple games, in the middle of games, after games, where he would step up, and when something needed to be said, he would say it. He's really grown into that leadership role. He did an excellent job with it this year, and I'm excited, to see what it is in the future. But I think another thing is he practices hard. He does things the right way, whether that's in the gym. He leads by example, and if something needs to be said, he's more than willing to say it.
Our next question is from Carly Johnston with Red Wings TV.
Hey, Luke, how's it going? Good to see you.
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Okay, I know you already touched on this a bit. Obviously, no one wants to see their season end abruptly and watch other teams return to play. But at the end of the day, are you just happy to see hockey return after this long pause?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, when we voted on the format, so it's not, completely official that hockey will return. We're obviously hoping that it will, and that's an exciting proposition that it will come back for sure. And, I think it can give hope to people, and that's exciting. But yeah, obviously we would love to be a part of that, but we didn't put ourselves in a great situation this season.
Okay, and how detrimental do you think this situation is to some of the young players in their development?
I mean, I think everyone's in this unique situation. It's not, not just young players. I think they'll have to adapt just like we all will, but, we'll continue working, and hopefully everyone will get through it.
Thanks, Luke.
Our next question is from Daniela Bruce with the Ward on Woodward.
Hi, Luke. And as you just mentioned, things are still a little uncertain. Nobody really knows when the NHL is going to return, but they are preparing to play in front of no fans. And being a member of the Player Association and the Red Wings representative, I don't know if you personally have a say or have an opinion on this, since we don't know what the situation will be when the Red Wings return. But from what you've heard and the conversations you've been around, how do players feel about playing with no fans in the building?
I mean, it's definitely going to be different. But I think, most importantly, everyone, all the players want everyone to be safe. And if that's what it takes to keep people safe at this moment, I said this before we stopped playing, but, sports don't exist in a vacuum. And we're at the same risk, and the fans that come in would be at the same risk. And so if that's what it takes to keep people safe, and but we can still entertain on television or, live streaming on the internet, whatever that might be, that's the best case scenario.
Yeah, I think we'll all be happy to see some hockey again if it does come back. Thank you, Luke.
All right, our next question is from Ted Kulfin with the Detroit News.
Hey, Luke, just the fact that you've been off the ice now for about 3 months, could be another month. How difficult just that aspect of it, just is it going to be to come back from? I mean, conditioning wise, is that going to be one of the most difficult things to recover and whatnot?
For sure. It's always hard, hockey, I can go back to my high school days, but when I played football, and then I would, I think I was in great shape, and I'd step on the rink for hockey and I'd feel terrible and out of shape. And skating's just not one of those things that transfers very easily. But that being said, guys are riding the bike, they're running, they're working out. So they'll be ready and be in shape. It's obviously going to take some time, like it does every summer, to get back into it. And, this will be no exception.
What do you think would help you guys? Like a mini camp down the line later this year, or just exhibition games with the 7 teams that didn't make it? I mean, have you guys been spitballing anything? I mean, how much would a mini camp, could something like that actually help a lot?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a unique situation. And, I know in the NFL, they do those OTAs. And so there are options. I don't know if the NHL and the NHLPA will agree to something like that. It's an interesting proposition, and maybe could be used.
All right.
Thanks, Luke.
Next question is from Art Regner with the Ward on Woodward.
Hi, Luke. How are you? It seems like I was just talking to you yesterday. I mean, but I'm kind of curious. I want to go back to the negotiations a little bit. Was there ever a point where it's a 2014 playoff where you and the 6 other reps got together and said, okay, our season's over, we accept it, but what do we get out of it? That can we, because everybody else is going to have a training camp, they're going to play, and whereas you guys are sitting on the sidelines, has there been any talk about possibly opening up like a facility or anything where if health concerns are met first, that the Red Wings could congregate and become a team again?
Not yet. I mean, I think first and foremost, we were just trying to get anything that we could in terms of getting teams back to playing. Obviously the 7 teams that aren't involved didn't put ourselves in a great situation. Even when they expanded the playoffs by 8 teams, we're still not making it. So, we didn't have a lot to hang our hat on, but, I think we were excited for the possibility that some hockey would be played and that they would get back. And, ultimately, I think we were just, all 7 teams that weren't involved, we felt weird voting on it just because we didn't, I said this earlier, but we didn't have a dog in the fight, whether it was a 16 team, 24 team, we weren't playing either way. So it's that was a little tough, but like I said, we thought that the group of guys who spoke with the NHL did a great job, and we believed in what they were doing.
Luke, we always know on the last day of the season for the Red Wings, locker clean out day, exit day, whatever you want to call it, you always take your team picture. And, it's kind of I always think it's kind of a sad day because the team's never going to be the same again. That's how professional sports works. When the Red Wings hit the ice again, there's going to be several players probably on this team as I said, the nature of the sport, that aren't going to be around. How difficult is it for you that perhaps some of your teammates didn't get their proper send-off and that, it just ended so abruptly for everybody? I know it's affected you all that, certain guys that, we know aren't going to be back, never really had that opportunity to say goodbye in the red and white.
For sure. It's tough. And, it's not easy to, even for us to say goodbye to people right now in this situation, but that's where we are. And, I think guys understand that. And, maybe down the road, we'll be able to do something, as a group of guys, but, for right now it's where we're at. So we just got to deal with it.
On a personal note, I want to tell you, I do agree with you. I think Ozark is a pretty good show. Thank you there, Luke. Good to see you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
All right. And we'll go back to Daniela Bruce for our last question for Luke.
Luke, I want to talk about your first season as an alternate captain for the Red Wings. It was a tough one to go through and have that A on your chest. What were some of the challenges personally that you feel like you either overcame or that you faced?
I think just, it's facing the media after a tough loss and, and trying to find answers when things aren't going well. I thought that was pretty difficult. I'm not a huge vocal guy. I try to speak when I need to, but, try to use my work ethic and lead by example in that respect. But, I didn't have a great year personally, so that was frustrating to me. When you have a leadership role, you want to be contributing more on the ice. And, I didn't do that. So that was frustrating for me for sure.
Thank you, Luke.
All right. Thanks again, everyone. Luke, thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
We'll take a break and get started with Dylan Larkin momentarily.
Another thank you to Luke Glendenning. That live look-in was brought to you by Motor City Casino Hotel. Art, I know you always love to talk to Luke Glendenning. What did you think about what he had to say in today's press conference?
Well, I think the key point is that when they all 31 of the union reps were together, it was pretty apparent, being realistic, that the 7 teams that aren't going to make the playoffs realized they just wanted to get hockey back. It's good for them as a collective to just get back on the ice if you can, and that they didn't have a dog in the fight. Now, I think a thing to remember, though, is that, and I probably should have asked him this, but let's put it, I have asked him this, and what we have to remember, this was just to continue the negotiation to continue. It wasn't that they have approved anything or even this plan. When they get everything settled, how it's all going to shake out, where the hub cities are and all that, the rank and file are all 600 and whatever it is in their union. Each player is going to vote on this. And that's why I wanted to ask him that question, because if you're a Red Wing sitting at home, okay, all right, maybe, we were our own worst enemy. We didn't qualify for the playoffs. Okay, that makes sense. But what do we get out of this? Can we still hit the ice? Can we still congregate as a team? And I know I'm obsessed with this, but I really am. I mean, I think it's very, very important, as soon as all health and safety standards are clear, that the Red Wings need to get back on that ice and build up that camaraderie and get looking towards next season. Have a goal to build on. I know Blash talked about these individual goals that they have to build on, which is cool, improve your shot and do all this. But you need a team together in order to work on team concepts, what's going to end up winning you hockey games. The sooner that can happen, the sooner that the Red Wings can come back in that form, even though they're not playing games, I think the better for the team.
And Luke touched on this again at the end of the press conference there, but he was an alternate captain this year. And I think everyone's attention is kind of focused on Dylan Larkin right now because of Steve Yzerman saying that he plans on naming a captain. But how do you think Luke was as a leader this season? I know you spent a lot of time in the locker room after games. And like he said, he always had to face the media after those tough losses. How do you think he handled that?
I think he handled it extremely well. I think all four alternate captains, Franz Nielsen, Dylan Larkin, Justin Abdicator, and Luke Glendening, I think it's really odd. I think because Luke and Justin and Dylan are from Michigan, so they kind of understand the whole psyche here of our state and Red Wing fans. I think when they came out, they were almost apologetic at times, saying, because they know how much people care about that hockey team, and they were frustrated. I can't tell you how many times Luke came out and said, I wish I had something more I can say to you. I really am running out of things to say, because they were as flummoxed as we all were, as virtually every mistake the Red Wings made seemed to end up in the back of their net. And and it wasn't that they were getting blown out every night, even though the record is not good. They still tried, they still cared, they still had a passion. And I think even though when they came out wearing that A, whether it be Luke, Dylan, Justin, or Franz, I mean, they were always, and Daniel, you heard it, how they were still engaged in playing and wanted to win hockey games regardless, that they were still a team. They didn't fray. They didn't, and that's a testament to them as players and also to Jeff Blashill and his coaching staff. I mean, they were able to keep it together during very, very trying times. And I think a part of it is because the guys that were wearing the letters were so accountable and talked every night in a very difficult situation.
Art, I also had another question for you regarding Jeff Blashill's press conference before we went live to Luke Glendening. He talked a little bit about the guys that may not be returning, that their careers could very well be over, or they could be moving on to another team that didn't get to have that final goodbye and that last game as a Red Wing, at least that they knew of, you know what I'm saying there. But how do you feel about those players? And I know nothing's certain yet and nobody knows exactly what will happen, but how do you feel for those veterans that this may have been the end of their road?
Well, I think I like the way Blashill, equated it to, you go to high school or you go to school your whole life, you're going to graduate. High school graduation is one of the biggest days in your young life at that point. It's almost a rite of passage into adulthood. And, that's not going to happen. I mean, it's great when, and I can't tell you how many trains of cars I've seen, in the neighborhood here, extolling the virtues of these high school graduates, which is great. But there's something about being a team. There was something special about today when they would come together and take that team picture. I think it's sad. Great, yeah, they're compensated and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to hear that. They're a team. They have a passion. They're competitive. The blood, sweat, and tears all together. And not to have that final say or goodbye. Now, perhaps the Red Wings will try to get everybody together and take an official team picture. I don't think they have taken an official team picture. They had 11 games left, so I don't think anybody saw this coming, unfortunately, or figured, the magnitude that this would impact our lives. So I think from that aspect, and I think Luke touched upon it too, it's pretty sad, but unfortunately, you have to, everything that's going on right now, whether we like it or not, we're going to have to accept it and make the best of it.
All right, I think I have an idea here. Maybe we should get everybody on a Zoom call, and that can be the team picture this year. So we'll take all the little boxes, and everyone can have their own, and we'll make sure we get a screenshot of that.
That would be great, because the Red Wings have team pictures hang up in the room from every year, from the time they were the Cougars and the Falcons, and that this one for the 2019-20 picture could be a Zoom call. Actually, I think that's a great idea. I think it's a wonderful idea because it is truly a reflection of the times. When people look back on that photo years from now, and when hockey historians, find it, they say, look at the Red Wings. I mean, this is what 2020 was like, and it's no better way to this picture exemplifies that. I think Daniela, I think that is the Red Wings should do that, and there should be a bonus in your check.
Hey, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. Couldn't agree with you more there.
Yeah, I figured you'd like that. That's why I know now you're going to pursue it, and that I get a little incentive. I have no say in the matter, of course, but there you go. Yeah, good for you, Daniela.
Thank you, Art. That was my good idea of the day. All right, and we are patiently awaiting Dylan Larkin to take the virtual podium, I guess I should say, and we'll hear from him. Art, do you think he's going to have any insight on this captain situation, or do you think he's going to stay, pretty quiet about that whole idea?
Get started with Dylan Larkin. Once everyone connects back to the audio, feel free to let us know in the chat if you have a question.
Hey, we're going to find out right now, actually, Art. No need to answer that question. It's time for another live look-in with Dylan Larkin.
Good, thank you. Steve, we talked about him a few times during the season, but what has it been like for you to get to know him this season? He said he didn't know you very well coming in other than as a player, but I'm sure likewise for you getting to know him as a person and as a general manager.
Yeah, it's been great. I think having his presence, having obviously everyone in hockey knows what he's done as a player, but also what he's done as a general manager, and then for him to come back to Detroit, and I think Ken Holland was a great general manager, but Steve coming back really ramped up the accountability in our locker room, and we had a great locker room and we have a great group of guys, but I think everyone was on their toes, which was a good thing, and everyone definitely from every practice where he was watching, and every game we the work ethic was always there. That was never a question for our team, rather than a few nights, but in a long season you're not going to have it every night. So having him around and getting to learn from him, having great conversations with him about where our team's at, where we both wanted to eventually be, was probably the most valuable thing that I could have had, and one of the best things that's kind of happened in my career. So it's been very positive, and something that I look to have more conversations and learn more from him, and have that grow.
Just want to follow up. He complimented your leadership skills yesterday. What does that mean to you, coming from a guy, that locally is known simply as the captain?
Yeah, I mean, myself, I guess, as a leader, I try not to force it. I try not to do anything but play the game I love, and be the person that I am, that loves being around the guys, loves playing hockey. So I show up to the rink. I try and work as hard as possible. I've had conversations with him that I've always knew, but it was good to hear from him that, at this point in my career, we have guys that they need to see guys in the gym. They need to see myself and Luke Glendening and Anthony and Tyler, working hard and doing everything we can as professionals to make sure we're in a spot to succeed on the ice, but to set a good example all the time for other players. So that was something that I tried to work on this year, is making sure that I'm always doing the right things, and making sure that I'm always a good example for everyone.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Larry Lage with the Associated Press.
Hey, Dylan, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Hanging in there. the organization has been preaching patience as part of this long rebuild. I'm wondering, as a leader of this team, how you balance, the organization's goals of, being patient in this long-term rebuild, and yet I'm sure you have a sense of urgency and maybe even desperation to make this team a winner sooner than later.
Yeah, it's hard. It's probably one of the hardest things I've gone through. As a hockey player, you want to win and you want to be in the playoffs, and it hurts even more when there's 24 teams that get a chance to play, and when hockey's been taken away from what we were able to do and not be able to finish the season out properly. But you have to use this as fuel, and I guess this season and trying to be patient is, to put it, it feels a lot like what's going on in the world right now with coronavirus and that may be obviously an extreme example, but it's hard to be patient. It's hard to stay home. It's hard to do the right things, but you have to do it. You have to follow the protocol. You have to go through hard times, and then we'll get back to normal. We'll get back to what the fans here in Detroit know is normal. Is we're in the playoffs. We're playing meaningful games down the stretch, and but it takes time, and you have to do it the right way, and that's what we're trying to do here in Detroit. And I think we have the right pieces coming in, and we have more to work on. I think every guy in the locker room needs to look in the mirror and say, I'm gonna use this time to get better, and we have to improve it from within, and we have to get some good pieces added. But it's not one person coming in to cure everything. It's got to come from a committee, and I think we have the guys that want it. And it's been tough, but with Steve being back, I think he's had some good conversations with myself that to be patient and try not to put everything on myself or 3 or 4 guys. We have to all play better, but we have to have more, and we all want more. So it's going to take a little bit of time, I guess, but you got to look in the mirror and see what you can do to make sure we're not in this position again.
A quick follow-up. How much do you feel for fans in this town, maybe particularly young ones who, don't have a winning pro team to follow, and also the bars and restaurants that depend on, you guys playing and the Tigers playing, whether you win or lose, there's bartenders, servers, parking lot attendants making money that aren't now. So a question about the fans and the businesses that depend on you guys.
Yeah, it's obviously the hardest part, I guess, is the industry itself that pro sports brings to the city. And I think, obviously everyone's taking a hit right now, and it's hard. I mean, I believe in the bottom of my heart that the city will come out of this and will come out stronger than we even are. And it's just a minor setback of what has been going on downtown. And, I think during tough times, you always want to rally around sports, and Detroit fans are the most proud fans in the country. And it's hard. We don't have that to rely on right now, but I do believe that all 4 major sports teams here in the city are going to be rebuilding towards greatness, and that's what I believe in for the Red Wings. And I know the Lions believe that, and the Tigers as well. So as well as the Pistons, they're all building towards something greater than what's going on right now. So there has to be patience, but there will be great moments in Detroit sports history coming up, and I can't wait to be a part of it.
Our next question is from Max Boltman with The Athletic.
Hey, Dylan, thanks for doing this. I'm curious, when was the last time you've been off the ice this long in your life?
Never. Although I broke my ankle in 2011, and I was off the ice for longer, but that was for a different reason. So it's been tough. I'm definitely ready to get back out there, and the hardest part is not knowing when we're gonna be playing next. So you have to plan accordingly, make sure you're ready to go for whenever we're able to play.
What are the challenges in that? I'm sure normally when you have your off season, you know exact timelines, and you can time, when your body's going to be in which, state and, performing at this level. How do you go about tailoring your off season right now?
It's hard. I've had a lot of talks with Mike Barbas, our trainer, our team trainer as well, and someone I've been working with for the past 6 years. So, he's a smart guy, and we've already come up with a few different plans depending on what happens. So right now, I think, I really haven't taken much time off, and I've been in the gym and, healing up injuries that were lingering this season. So this is a valuable time for myself to make sure my body's 100% healthy coming into next season, and making sure that, I'm getting ahead of everyone else while, either guys are playing and getting banged up, or guys are sitting at home because they think they don't want to train yet, or whatever it may be. So I'm, started early, but I'm looking forward to this time where, I can change my body and change into a stronger, more explosive athlete. So it could be there's obviously the downside that we're not playing, but there's also a positive where you can do some serious changes in the body during this time.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Ansar Khan with M Live.
Hi, Dylan. It's a big off season for your line mates, both up for contracts this summer. Discuss just the importance of Anthony and Tyler moving forward to this team and its rebuild, and as being important parts of the just the core group of young players here.
But yeah, they're both great players. Obviously, they had great years in their own, and Anthony had a couple tough injuries this year, so I think he's trying to heal up as well, and make sure that he's coming back and he's healthy and in a position where he can really take off in his career next year. And I know Tyler's already doing the same training, and I think the biggest message when this all stopped is we all have to put ourselves in a position where we're ready to take off next year, and one, for our careers, and two, for our team, and those should be opposite, one for the team and two for our careers. But that's the position we're in, and we haven't proved much yet. So we want to do it together, and we want to, play together for a long time. So I think, both of them will get their deals done, and we'll be ready to go next year and ready to take off.
Our next question is from Brad Galley with WXYZ.
Like the artwork in the background there, Dylan. Looks good.
Thanks.
Jerseys.
Difficulties.
When we talked with Steve yesterday, he was asked about the year that he gave himself to kind of observe everybody, including you. There was a follow-up. Dana asked about you, and he talked a lot about you and your leadership role. If you are chosen as the captain of this team, what would that mean to you?
Well, I think it'd be one of the greatest honors of my life. It would be something that I take very seriously. It'd be to represent the Red Wings, and that role would be something I never imagined that I would be as a kid growing up in Detroit. Played my whole career here, my whole life here. So you see the players, even Steve himself, that have been that, and they've been the ultimate Red Wings, and they're not only great players but great people in the community. So it'd be a great honor, but I'm not going to say that's my only goal, or even if it doesn't happen, that I'm going to be upset about it. I'm going to go about my business, and I'm going to perform for this team and the fans, and do everything I can this summer to make sure my game is all around better for next year, and take the next step for our team.
Next question is from Carly Johnston with Red Wings TV.
Hey, Dylan, how's it going?
Good.
Good. All right. So you talked about this slightly, and I wanted to ask, obviously no one wants to see their season end like this and watch other teams return to play. But at the end of the day, are you just happy to see hockey get back to where it was?
Yeah, absolutely. I think hockey coming back, sports coming back in general, gives people hope, and that's what we need right now, is something to watch and something to gather around. People in their cities need to cheer for their teams, and it's unfortunate that we're on the outside looking in, but it is very exciting that there's some normalcy coming back to the world, and the NHL is going to take every safety precaution they have to and make sure that this is a safe process, and everyone involved is there's no stone unturned. So it's going to be a long road, but it's a great sign that there's hockey coming back and sports in general coming back.
And when you do return, how do you feel about the possibility of playing in front of no fans?
I think it's I don't see a problem with it. Obviously, the playoffs, it's so exciting with your fans, and you want to have the support from your home crowd. But when you drop the puck and there's 5 guys against you on the other side, you want to have the edge, and you want to win. So I don't see it as a problem, but I think after first couple shifts, you'll get used to it.
Okay, last question. What are you hoping to accomplish next season, whenever that starts?
Definitely make sure we're not in this position where we're looking at the lottery and hoping that we can get a special player in the draft. But you want to draft well wherever you are, but we want to be fighting for the playoffs and want to be playing this time of year. And you got to look at yourself and make sure that you do everything you can to make sure that you did your job in the end of the day, and you're not in this position. So I definitely feel I could have gave more offensively all around this year, but it's by committee, it's the whole team. So we all need to come back and have a mindset that we're going to do anything we can to make sure we're not in this position.
Thanks, Dylan. Enjoy your time with Ellie. Is that her whining in the back?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Daniel Wakiji with DetroitRedWings.com.
Hey, Dylan. Good to see you, especially since you're clean shaven, unlike Anthony.
Yeah.
So I was just curious as to some of the younger players, younger than you, that you played with this year. Where did you see the most growth? And tell me some of those guys and what you were most happy about seeing.
Well, I mean, the exciting part is there's quite a few of them. It's you got all the guys that didn't even get a chance in Grand Rapids that I got to see in training camp, and Maurice Sider and Joe Valeno. Ras was down there for a little bit. We've seen him in Detroit, and it seems like he took a step in the right direction playing center. And the other two that I mentioned are just trying to find their footing, but also really help that team down there. So I was very impressed with the demeanor of Gustav Lindstrom when he came up, and the kind of player he is someone I love being on the ice with. And Zadina came up and he started playing really well and was dangerous. I think more and more he was on the ice, he was more dangerous, and really that goal scoring threat that we need pretty badly. So these guys are developing. They're developing into good NHL players, and that's huge for our team. So I think those two guys, and they're all a big part of the future. So we need them to take a huge step this summer in the gym and make sure they're ready to go next season.
Thank you.
Next question is from Art Regner with the Word on Woodward.
Hi, Dylan. How are you?
Good, Art.
I'm obsessed with this, so I'm just going to come right out and say it. You're one of the best skaters in the world. We know you're one of the fastest. Skating is a big part of your game. Is there any way to duplicate being on the ice without being on the ice because there's no ice to be
on? You know what? It's hard. You're definitely right, but I think rollerblading is something I've been doing a lot. I've been doing it as a kid, so I've definitely put the rollerblades on a couple times and just stick handling in the backyard. So I think right now training in the gym, you can build up so much muscle and explosiveness in the gym that will help you on the ice. But it is hard to get the stride mechanics and the stride itself when you're not on the ice. So I guess yes and no. It's kind of a mixed question, but there's positives and negatives to both sides. Being off the ice for this long, you can build strength and explosiveness and through working out, but you can't replicate that stride that you need on the ice. So
I'm kind of curious. I mean, you're obviously from here. You're Michigan to the core. How important was it for you and your father, Kevin, to step up and make donations, and because of your influence as a Red Wing, to take that and become a leader in charitable efforts in this community?
Well, it means a lot, especially that I was able to do it, with my dad and, him being in the beauty supply industry here in Detroit for 30 plus years. He had access to stuff that was in need with hospitals, and so we felt that my dad had some in inventory, and he charged me about full price, so I didn't get a deal, but it was just something that we were very proud to be able to help in any way we could. So I'll give him a lot of credit. He kind of said, hey, this would be a good thing to do, let's do it. And we were able to help a couple hospitals downtown when they needed it the most. So
well, what did you learn about yourself this year? This was a difficult year. I mean, you had to face us after every single game in some very difficult moments. Was it a period of real growth for you that, that you learned that is, even though my engine runs hot, I've got to tone it down a little bit? How did this whole season play out for you?
You know what? I think I started and it was I think till about game 30, I had a conversation with Steve, and he almost kind of said, he said to me, you can't do this all yourself. And I kind of took a step back after he said that to me. And, I think he was saying it in the most positive way where, I was almost trying too hard to sometimes it was hurting me. So after I kind of around Christmas time took a step back and used my line mates a little more and, played a little simpler and still played hard, but I was, playing the right way, and that really helped me. And I think another thing that I feel in my, core is that I'm hungrier than I've ever been. And, we have a long summer ahead, but, I've been in the gym since this all ended in March, and, I can't wait to get back to playing, and, I want to be in the best shape of my life next year and play big minutes and contribute in any way I can. So I'm definitely hungrier, and I want to make sure every aspect of my game improves this summer.
Thank you very much, Dylan. Give my best to your entire family. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Art.
All right, our next question is from Nick Katsunico with NHL.com.
Hey, Dylan, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to get your reaction to Yzerman saying that, Blashill remains the coach and that it's unfair to judge him on the team's record.
Blash is a great coach. He's a hardworking coach. He's someone that has been very fair in all of this, and it's someone that, with the way we've played at times, it is unfair to judge. And I don't really want to talk a whole lot about it because he's the coach and I'm a player, and in the end of the day, I have no say. I have to play my best, and I have to play better than I did this year. But I have a lot of respect for him and how he came every day to the rink. He worked us extremely hard, as he should have, and he understood that there's a bigger picture than this season, and he wants all of his players to be great, and I have a lot of respect for him. So that's
just curious, how much have you talked to him during the pause, and how much do you think he'll be able to work with guys to kind of make the most of the time that you have here before you play again?
Well, we talked quite a bit at the beginning when there was a little bit of the unknown, and I was relaying information to the other guys, and we had a Zoom call, talked for kind of as the exit meeting not too long ago when things weren't looking good. So I think as this goes, we have 9 months, and I wouldn't like to take that long away from the guys. So you know what, I hope there's some way we can all get together this summer and we can all have time where we're all here and training together. I think that'd be so valuable for our young group of guys and for our team. So I hope the league can work something for the 7 teams that didn't get to play in the playoff, and that we can get together. And I know it's hard with guys and out in Europe. So but I think when August or end of July comes around, there will be a time and a place when everything's safe that we can all get back together and have some time where we can work on next year.
Thank you.
Our next question will be Helene St. James with the Detroit Free Press.
Dylan, just a lighthearted comment. I keep hearing your dog in the background.
I'm sorry, guys.
Does she want in on the Zoom call? And can you tell?
She's spoiler. I won't. She will.
What prompted you to get a dog? But what kind is she? And I saw at least early on she looked like she was part of your training.
Yeah.
Regime.
Well, yeah. She's growing now. She. When this all happened, we kind of understood it was going to be a while till it was normal. Or I guess I was taking a chance to get her, and we had a family dog that passed away this year, and I wanted to get one myself. So as soon as the season ended, I got her. She's a Bernedoodle, and she's supposed to be 70 pounds, but she's at 5 months. She's already 40 or 50 pounds. So she's gonna be pretty big, and she's as spoiled as it gets. So it's a good time, and it's definitely been something that has been keeping me busy during this time.
Thanks.
Our next question will be from Daniela Bruce with the Ward on Woodward.
Hi, Dylan. Good to see you. I was just kind of wondering, you mentioned it, missing the guys and being out on the ice with them, but you guys are friends outside of just being teammates too. I know we've all been taking part in some virtual happy hours and things like that on Zoom. Have you guys been getting together in that way, or how have you been keeping in contact with your teammates?
Not really. We haven't done that yet. It hasn't got to the point, I guess. Guys are just getting home, and guys all over the world, so it's kind of tough with timing and everything, and with the guys having kids. So you know what, I think, like I said, once it gets to August, I know there'll be some itching to get back, and the guys that are still here will be ready for them to come back and get all the guys together. So it's definitely been weird where I think we were in Washington on Thursday, March 12th, and we were getting ready for a game, and we were at breakfast, and they said, "Hey, we're not going to the rink." And a couple hours later, we were on the plane heading home, and that was it. So we were told to stay home, and it was definitely tough way to end the season on that note. But we'll be hungrier to get back together, and we have a close group of guys. So yeah.
And Dylan, I do have to tell you, I came up with what I think is a great idea. So you're going to have to confirm or deny this, but you guys didn't get to take a team picture this season at the end of the season. So I think you should try to get everybody on a Zoom call and take a screenshot, and then that can be your team picture for the year. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not that talented. I couldn't even get the background up like the other guys.
Yeah, that's okay. It worked out.
Not a Zoom master.
All right, the last question today is from Bob Winowski with the Detroit News.
I'm not a Zoom master either, thankfully. But Dylan, I know you won't be playing games per se competitively anytime soon, but training and practicing when you can get back. Do you think you'll have any nervousness about the virus and the safety protocols that are in place? Because everything is kind of just flying, experimental at this stage. Will you be nervous at all about what's in place?
Absolutely, you have to think about that. I think for myself as a luckily a young, healthy person, I'd be more worried about my family and people that I could harm from being out and being in contact, whether it's a game night or whatever it may be. So, if you think about normally with what we do on the road or we're all traveling together, there's a lot of people that we can come in contact with. So, I would be a little bit nervous, I guess, but I think the league and most every sports league is going to do the right thing and make sure that the players are also doing the right things and making sure that we're not going to be a harm to communities or fans or whoever it may be. More importantly, each other and our families.
All right, that is all the time we have today. Dylan, thanks for your time. Thanks everyone else for joining us. Take care, and we'll see you all soon.
Yeah.
There you have it, everybody. Dylan Larkin. And now we've heard from 3 Red Wings headliners today at the end of the season press conferences. So thanks to our friends at Miller Lite, we're going to bring in Art Regner and Carly Johnston. You guys, I mixed your names there to discuss what we heard at these press conferences. Carly, let's start with you. Hearing from Dylan Larkin there, he had a lot of questions about leadership, of course, and everyone else was complimenting him, from Steve to Coach Blashill and even Luke Glendening. And you guys spend a lot of time in the locker room, both you and Art, after games, hearing what Dylan has to say and how he handles himself in those tough situations. What do you think of Dylan Larkin as a leader?
I know Dylan Larkin. I mean, he's a Michigan guy, and I know this means the world to him. I mean, he's a hard worker. Sometimes he lets it get the best of him. We see that in some situations during games when he gets a little heated. But, I mean, even though he's a young guy, he's mature. I mean, you look at him in the locker room, he's always the guy to come out after a loss or a win, come out and talk to the media, and he always has respectable answers. Like every time he talks, you listen, because what he's saying, it's not always sugar coated, I guess I could say. Like whenever he talks and it's not always, we're trying our hardest. Like he definitely makes sure that he takes those blows and he accepts them. And he's always the first guy to point at himself if he had a bad game, to say, I didn't play hard enough for this team, or we didn't play hard enough for Bernier or Howard. So he's very respectable in that sense. I think he's a great leader, both on and off the ice. So it would be really cool to see him with that C on his sweater. I know Art is the #1 guy who wants to see that.
Well, I think you could see. I thought what was really interesting is when he talked about Steve Yzerman pulling him aside 30 games into the season and saying, buddy, I've been down this road. I'm pretty sure that's how Steve talks, actually. Buddy, I've been down this road, and you can't do it all. You can't do it all yourself. I mean, I scored 165 points in one season, and we weren't very good. So I think that we saw the maturation. I think you can see the coming of age of Dylan Larkin full circle, not only as an outstanding player, but growing into, and I don't mean this in a corny way, but growing into adulthood to a certain degree. He made the Red Wings at 19. He made the Red Wings at 19, and he's been here ever since. So I just think that he has to, and I think you can see that. I mean, he has to have the C on. There's no doubt about it. And I think that he settled down in a strange sense when I watch him. And I watch him a lot when he's playing, when he's on the bench or away from the play.
I literally can't hear anything. Eric, is that okay?
Reminds me very much of a young John McEnroe. When McEnroe was coming up, although McEnroe, he retired at 25, but I guess what I'm saying is that he just runs hot, and he does let the emotions sometimes get the best of him. I think that this year, Steve pulling him aside, telling him to settle down a little bit. He changed his outlook. He passed the puck more. He didn't try to do it all himself. So, and to me, I'm sorry, that's a mark of a captain. That's a mark of a leader. And and Dylan Larkin is that guy. there's no question in my mind. I know I've joked around and said, "Oh, it's going to be Mo Sider or Lafreniere if they get him." But but really, in all seriousness, if Dylan Larkin is not wearing the C when the Red Wings hit the ice for the first time next season, whenever that may be, I would be stunned. I would be absolutely shocked. I mean, he's earned it. He's there, how many times we heard Luke Glendening say it? We've heard from virtually every player we've ever talked to says day in and day out, Dylan Larkin is our best player. Now, your best player doesn't necessarily have to be the captain of the team, but not only is he their best player, 200 feet, plays a complete game, he is also their leader. He is their emotional support. If something needs to be said, I'm pretty sure that when he's in that room, Dylan Larkin is going to say it. And, it might have taken him a while because, as I said, he made the Red Wings at 19. But, I thought he was impressive again today. The only thing that I thought that his Team USA jersey, which was in the background, almost looks like an Edmonton Oilers jersey. I was thinking, oh, my gosh, did they trade him? But, but aside from that brief panic that was in my mind there, I really think that he's just a wonderful player. He needs to get on the ice. I mean, his skating ability is second to none in this league. I know Connor McDavid's great. There's a lot of great skaters in the NHL. Actually, they're all great because they're skating and they're in the NHL. But with that said, just look at the way he moves. He's so fluid out there. He's just a leader. He's just a leader. I just think that it's about time. Give him the C and let him grow and let this team grow as the Red Wings are on to becoming legitimate Stanley Cup contenders.
Art, that jersey was in the background because he couldn't find the way to get the background on there like Jeff Blashill and Luke Glendening did too. And hey, I gotta say, he didn't seem as excited about my idea as I was hoping, Art. I totally had to share it with him because I figured he could make it happen, but he wasn't as excited as I was.
Well, don't feel bad. I think Daniela, I think he liked the idea. I think he thought you were asking him to pull it off. And as you can see, you didn't even get the background. I think if you explained it to Dylan, look, we're going to do this Zoom call. This is going to be our team picture for the year, which I still believe is an outstanding idea. I think that as long as you walk him through it, he'll do it. He just can't put it together. I think
that's true.
Background.
Another lighthearted note. I thought he was going to put his dog on his lap, Carly. I thought you had him there for a second.
I was waiting for it. I was hearing the whining and I was like, Dylan, is that Ellie? And he was like, yeah. I looked down. I was like, pick her up. Didn't happen, unfortunately, but maybe next time.
And Carly, we haven't got to really get your thoughts on Coach Blashill's press conference either. Obviously, us three are all thrilled that he's coming back. He's a great guy and he's a great coach. But from your interactions with him, why are you excited that he's going to be back for at least another season?
I love Coach Blashill as a person and as a coach. He's a great leader. He's the most well-spoken guy I've ever met in my life. When he talks, I listen and I'm like invested in what he's saying. Sometimes some things he says about hardships and like coming out on the other end, like I actually listen to and kind of apply to my own life. He's that great of a speaker. So when you have someone like that leading you and knowing the right words to say, I think it helps. I think he's a great coach. I think he, like I said about Dylan, he never sugarcoats things. He's pointing fingers and he'll point them at himself. This is something we have to do, not something this one player has to do. It's a team effort when it comes to Coach Blashill. I think he's great. And I think you can't look at just a coach. If a team's having a bad season, you can't just look at the coach. It's a whole organization. It goes from the top to bottom. I mean, it's everyone. I think he's a great coach. I think he's a great fit. I think he has great relationship. I know the players respect him. So he's a great relationship with the team. He has a great relationship with Yzerman and like Draper. I mean, all those guys. I think they all really respect him. And I think that's a huge thing about being a head coach on a team is having respect from the organization.
And Carly, to kind of go off that, Art, I want your comments on this too. How important is it as a coach, especially when you're going through times like the Red Wings went through this season, to keep control of the locker room, which it seems that Jeff Blashill did?
Well, he certainly did.
You never hear
Carly made a great point.
Go ahead, Art. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, you're fired up. I love it. I think. I think. I think that's one of the reasons why what Steve saw in him. I mean, the Red Wings had a tough year. You know, we're not sugarcoating it. They don't sugarcoat it. Yet they played hard. You know, Jeff Blashill worked his tail off to put them in the best position to win, and that's all a coach can do. He never lost the room. The team never just packed it in. You know, regardless of the record, they were in most games. I saw every game they played, and you know there were some trying moments and times. And I know that it was like the dam burst. They give up one goal, and then 3 minutes later it'd be like 4-0. You know, they had these brief moments in periods where they gave up a bunch of goals, regardless of lucky bounces, pure skill by the other team, bad plays by the Red Wing. Any way you slice it, they had those kind of moments. But overall, in a collective. And Steve, when he's watching this team, and he watches every practice. He's there for every practice. And, you know, he overlooks it, and I think he saw, here's a guy who's working. He's trying to make him the best. The team responds to him. They like him. Look, how many times have we seen in professional sports? If they don't like the coach or your best players don't like the coach, that guy's not coaching that team much longer, you know, and that didn't happen to the Red Wings, which is a testament to Jeff Blashill and his ability. And trust me, Steve Yzerman saw that, and that's why Jeff Blashill is still here today and could be here for many seasons to come, depending on how the draft goes, how some of the young prospects do it. Depending on what pieces Steve adds. Let me put it to you this way: I don't think Steve has any qualms if, as the team gets better, that Jeff Blashill is suddenly going to lose his ability to coach. You know, that you give him better players. You know, I've covered a lot of great managers, a lot of great coaches over the year, and the number one thing every one of them has ever said, I'm not going to name drop and tell you who they are, but there's some really heavy hitters in the coaching profession. They all say the same thing: it begins with players. It begins with players. You have to have the players. You know, yeah, I'm great. Yeah, okay, I'm going to pat myself on the back like Carly does whenever she wins 2 Truths and a Lie. But but with that said, it's the players. It comes down to the team that you have on the field or on the ice or on the court or on the gridiron. You need players in order to win. And and once Jeff Blashill gets better players, suddenly Jeff Blashill is going to be a better coach because he has a better team.
Another thing I will say is during practices, not everyone's
ahead,
there. Art and I are there for, but no, you're good. During practice, I mean, Blash is yelling so loud. Towards the end of the practice, he barely has a voice, and you can see him. You know, he's addressing the whole group. They're going through plays, they're going through drills, but then you notice a lot of individual players approach him to talk to him, and they feel comfortable with him, and they're going to him for advice, or they're like, hey Blash, can I work on this, or what can I improve on? So they really honor what he has to say, and they look to him, and they're comfortable enough to approach him, which I think is a great trait of a good leader.
Definitely. It's very important. I think, just as you guys have said, that Jeff Blashill is doing a great job. Carly, one more question I want to ask you. A question you had for a couple of the players and Coach Blashill was the development of younger players. How will it be affected by, not playing for however long it may be? We don't really know exactly. What did you think about the responses that you got?
I think, Glenn Denning, he told me it's not just the young players, which is true. I mean, I understand a lot of these guys who are like my age, they're still developing. I mean, every player, you're not a good player if you think you're done developing. And I think it's detrimental to a lot of these players. Players aren't being able to skate, so they can't work on that. Players don't have the equipment that they have at the state-of-the-art Little Caesars Arena. I mean, they have everything. So a lot of these guys, they don't have home gyms. They don't have access to gyms. Because of the stay-at-home order right now, but I know they're trying, and we saw like a lot of guys like Bertuzzi was working out with some cinder blocks, but like that's not the same that they have at the facility. And again, I can't put more emphasis on the fact that these guys aren't skating on ice. I know Larkin said he's been rollerblading, but again, you're not on ice. So that's a big setback for hockey players especially. I know a lot of football players and that, like, they can hit the field, but hockey players, they can't hit the ice. So that's going to really make a lot of guys, especially young players, I think, take a step back, especially guys like Philip Zadina, who was playing so well before he injured himself. And obviously, like, maybe he could have played the tail end of the season. But, looking at players like Mo Sider, Joe Valeno, and these guys who are really working on the skill sets to come into their own, that's going to be tough for them going into the following season and possibly for the rest of their career.
Definitely. And with the potential of an expanded roster next season, again, it's all stuff that we don't really know. They could be with the Red Wings. So that stuff is really important to them. Very, very great point. And Art, I want you to finish this one up for us. All three of the interviews or press conferences that we saw today, what was your biggest takeaway?
They miss hockey. I think they miss being together. I think they miss the team. I think they miss the team. I'm being Captain Obvious here, but I think they miss the environment of being together. A player, very high-end Hall of Fame player, explained it to me this way, and I think you saw it today, that when he broke into the league, there were a lot of great players, guys that had unlimited potential. And they were in it, but their motivation might have been more financial than it was passion. And to a man, every one of those players that were in it more for the financial aspects of hockey were not in the league 5 or 6 years down the road. Their talent kept them in the league, but the guys who make it, the guys that become a cut above, are the guys that have a fire burning in their belly. They have a passion for the game. That's why they do it. They have that competitive spirit. And I think you could tell by Luke Glendening and obviously Dylan Larkin and Jeff Blashill, who was a player. I know he downplays it. He wasn't much of a goalie at Ferris State, but Jeff has that player's mindset too. And I think that's what really showed today, is that these guys do what they do because of the competitive nature and because they have a passion for it. Sure, they might be rewarded handsomely financially, but that's not why they play the game. Because if you do, you're not going to be playing this game very, very long, because that's why they play. They play to win. They play for passion. They play with fire. And I think you saw that today from Blashill, Glendening, and Dylan.
I mean, talent only gets you this far. I think the rest of the way,
Well, look at a guy. Chris Draper is a perfect example. I love Chris Draper.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Draper. We all know the story for $1, right? And when Chris Draper was bought for $1 from the Winnipeg team, from the Winnipeg Jets, who became the Arizona Coyotes, but when he was, he says, my first reaction is, I can't make the Winnipeg Jets. How am I going to make the Detroit Red Wings, who were obviously the class of the league? You know how he made it? Because he has fire and passion and desire. That's how Chris Draper made it. That's how they all make it. And I, again, not to be too redundant here, but that's why they're professional hockey players. That's why they wear the red and white. That's why they have the winged wheel crest on their chest. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, guys, I'm sure you have plenty of questions for Art, Carly, and myself. So make sure that you're putting those in the comments during the rest of the Word on Woodward. Carly will be all over the social media, and we'll bring her back later in the show and hopefully get some of those questions answered for you guys. Thank you, Carly, and we'll see you later.
Thank you. See you guys soon.
And a big thank you to our friends at Miller Lite for bringing us the headliner, Miller Lite, the original light beer with great taste and only 96 calories, available for delivery. You guys, we're going to get back to our regularly scheduled programming for the Word on Woodward. We've got some great interviews coming up, including one with Lisa McDowell, and we've got Nico Goodrum and Kevin Allen on the show. But right now, we're going to pick back up with the Big Three. You may have seen this at the beginning of the show, the Big Three presented by Chevy. And the first topic, we talked a little bit about Steve Yzerman's press conference, and we're going to pick things up right now in the return to play plan for the NHL. And again, I mentioned we have Kevin Allen on the show with us for Downtown Hockey Town, and he had a lot to say about this, Art. So we'll keep it a little brief and we'll answer more of the questions later. But we've talked about it kind of a lot today, actually. We've seen it in the press conference, 24 teams, NHL return to play plan. What's your reaction when you look at this plan?
Well, I like there's still some uncertainty about, will the second round be 3 out of 5, or will it go to the traditional 4 out of 7 that is usually happens in a play-in format? I like these matchups. I mean, I'm really, really interested. I know that I know we've dwelled upon this, but the Pittsburgh Penguins have to be pretty nervous because Carey Price can win 3 games against anybody. He can win that series. And Montreal was not a playoff team until this 2014 playoff came in. So I think it is intriguing matchups, and I don't know who is at an advantage because, we even heard Luke say it, and I think Dylan might have alluded to it, and that all these teams are essentially in the same boat. They all have training camp together. They've all been off for an extended period of time. So I think that as the playoffs wear on, the quality of hockey will get better. But I expect in several of these matchups, don't be surprised if you usually say, well, there might be 1 or 2 upsets. Who knows? There could be, the bottom teams could beat the top teams. I mean, that's just how wide open it is right now. So I'm eager to see it. I'm interested to see where the hub cities will be. We keep hearing that Vegas is definitely one. Then where will the East go? Will they go to Toronto? And then there's that border issue. So I just want to see hockey, I guess is what I'm saying. I mean, I think this is the best plan possible. I think Luke Glendening alluded to it. There is, everybody, they want to get hockey started for the best of the league. This is the most fairest way to do it because virtually every team but the Red Wings still had a mathematical chance to make the playoffs. Granted, a lot of things for the 6 teams along with Detroit that aren't in this playoff format would have had to win virtually every game, and a couple other teams virtually lose every game. But mathematically, everybody was in it. So I think that's why they extended it to 24, because even though the season was almost over, they had a number of games. You're talking 11 games for the Red Wings. That's 22 points. If you're 4 or 5 points out of a playoff spot, like many of these teams were, I mean, it was really compacted. They wanted to give them an opportunity. You can't finish the season. The timeline won't let that work. But let's open up and expand the playoffs, get hockey back, and it'll create a buzz. Hopefully, knock on wood, as I like to say, we're never gonna be down this road again and see this. So in that aspect, it's pretty exciting too. Unprecedented times, unprecedented playoff format. But hey, I think it's gonna be pretty exciting.
I agree with you, Art. It will be exciting. We get upsets in a normal playoff condition here. We're going to definitely see some upsets in this one when hockey does return. We'll talk more about this later, as I said, with Kevin Allen. He helps us with the draft too, which was a little bit confusing. So he's going to break that down for us. We'll talk to him in a little bit. For now, move on to our third topic of the big 3 today, which is the Tigers' a dream come true. And you know what? I'm not even going to try to explain this one right away. Let's get right into the video and see what the Tigers did to make one little boy's day very, very special.
Hey Tigers fans, Carly Johnston here, and we're going to be introducing you to a very special fan. Peyton, how's it going, man? Are you enjoying this nice weather?
Yes.
Well, I understand you play baseball, right? What's your team name?
Blazers.
I have a surprise for you today. I have to tell you, we are not the only ones on this video chat, Peyton.
Hey, Peyton, how are you?
Good.
Good. It's great to see you. Great to meet you.
How long have you been pitching?
I've been pitching ever since I could, they would allow somebody to pitch. So that was, I think, 7 years old. Do you throw a changeup or anything?
I don't know any of the fancy pitches.
Well, I'll show you how I throw mine. And you can start throwing it too. It'd be a great pitch for you. So you just take 3 fingers and you put them right over top of the baseball, and you just you squeeze it hard. Perfect. Yeah, that's it right there. That'll slow the ball down. It'll look just like your fastball. Here's a swing right over top of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, buddy.
Peyton, let's bring in Austin. He can teach us how to catch the ball, yeah?
Does it hurt like the way you sit there all the time?
The older I get, yeah, it's starting to hurt a little more every year. But there's sometimes, if you do enough work in the weight room and you lift and you run and you take care of your body takes care of you. Make sure that whoever's catching you knows what you like to do and what you can do well, and stick with that.
Your mom may have a gift for you from us.
A tiger.
Oh.
A lunchbox. A hat.
Always. The old English.
All right. Nice.
That's awesome, man. Love the hat. You're looking stylish.
Is that a baseball to show you how to grip the ball?
Yeah.
So when it's all safe, when we're done with this thing going on right now, which everybody's dealing with, which is horrible. As soon as that's done, the Tigers and Buck and I would love for you to come out to the stadium with your family. We can get you guys to a game. Maybe definitely get you down on the field. You can meet some of the other players, meet us face to face, and I'm sure we can make that happen in some way. But we would love to see you guys.
That'd be so cool.
I can't wait to see you three at Comerica Park, hopefully very soon.
Go Tigers! Go Tigers!
Peyton, what a sweet boy. That smile on his face when he found out that he was going to get to go to a Tigers game as soon as it's safe for him to be there, meet some of the players. You got to commend the Tigers for this one. What a great moment.
Oh, without question. I don't even know what to say. I mean, that's just one of those moments that does put it in perspective for you. Austin Romine, George Buck Farmer. I just, how great, and you could tell that they were. I can't help it. I mean, now that I know his first name, I'm pretty obsessed with it. But with that said, I just think that it's a great thing, and I think you could tell that he was so touched. Little Peyton was touched, and then you had the Tigers, and they were touched. And that's the one thing. I know that. We always hear that debate, should athletes be role models? Well, guess what? They are role models just by the nature of what they do, the way you gravitate them to your heroes as a child. And for most people, or most, I guess everybody, all young children, athletes are very, very special. And I think that the Tigers certainly realized that, and what they were able to do for that little boy. He may be facing some challenges, but he knows he's not alone. And wouldn't it be great one day that to see Peyton in that old English D out on the mound, pitching for the Tigers. And we wish him nothing but the best of luck. We're all behind him. And again, I mean, the Tigers, they're doing it right. They understand it. They're getting it done there, Dana. I mean Dana. My gosh, Daniela. I've been texting with Dana a little bit here too about the editorial side. But aside from that, Daniela, I just think it's just a great thing. It really kind of makes my day when I see things like that.
I think he asked the question all of us want to ask too, Austin Romine. Does it hurt when you're squatting behind the plate there? I loved that question, and Austin's response was even better.
Hey, dude, I'm getting a little bit older. You're right, it hurts, and you could see Austin Romine's response was hilarious. He started laughing, and you could tell that he was really kind of touched by that question. I mean, I just think a great exchange. Great job by the Tigers as always.
Yes, very, very well done, Tigers. That was a great moment. And Peyton, we're with you. We're sticking by your side through all this and can't wait to see you at the ballpark. And that wraps it up for our Big Three presented by our friends at Chevy. Chevy cares. That is why Chevy Clean dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC-approved cleansers before delivering your vehicle after purchase or service. So when you're ready, you can find new roads with confidence. Like I said, guys, we've got a jam-packed show for you. We're going to hear from Nico Goodrum and Kevin Allen in just a little bit, but right now we're going to catch up with Carly.
Thanks, Daniela. That's right. It's time for Catching Up with Carly. Joining me today is Red Wings team dietitian, Lisa McDowell. Lisa, how are you doing?
I'm great. It's so nice to be on the show with you.
I know, I truly miss you. And how is it you've been feeling? I understand you had, and thankfully recovered from COVID-19. On top of being the team dietitian, you're also the director of nutrition at St. Joe's. So you were at the hospital a lot.
Yes, I am. I'm feeling so much better. Thank you for asking. I'm well over the COVID-19, back to my normal routine, back to work at the hospital, and really doing well.
Good. So glad to hear you're healthy again, Lisa. Okay, and let's dive into your role with the Red Wings. What are a few things your job entails?
The job is really interesting because I get to be part of the medical staff as well as the training staff. And so really learning all of the pieces of information that help to optimize each individual athlete. So for example, with the medical team, if a player was to have an injury, we like to help them heal with nutrition. So for a broken bone or a tendon injury or a concussion, we know that there are a lot of really great nutrients that can accelerate the healing process and even protect from re-injury. My job also includes working with our chef and the kitchen crew to make the best food available as possible. So it involves connecting the right supply chain because we're only as good as what we bring in. So like the right kind of peanut butter and balsamic vinegar and, things that the guys like, and making sure that the foods that they enjoy are available, especially like post game during critical timing. We really like to get the best, freshest food available so that they can get their nutrients from their food and not from pills. There are some circumstances where it's difficult to get enough in our food. Perfect example is vitamin D in Michigan. So many of the players struggle with low vitamin Ds. So that is one example of a supplement that we would purchase. And so just making sure those are always available at the right time to optimize their recovery and their overall good health. So we look at their blood tests as well to make sure that what's being chosen for each individual player is working.
What got you into nutrition and being a dietitian?
Well, I grew up in a garden and watching my grandmother. She was a pastry chef. We had a peach tree, and I just love to get my hands in the dirt. And actually here at St. Joe Hospital in Ann Arbor, we have the first hospital farm in the United States on campus in a hospital. So I truly believe in let that food be your medicine mantra. I was very strong in science in college and had the option of either going to medical school or doing nutrition. And I really liked the idea of preventing disease and letting food, really heal us and be our medicine.
Absolutely. And throughout this season pause that the Wings have gone through, and now the cancellation of the remainder of the Wings season, how do you make sure the players are getting the proper nutrition, and how do you counsel them to keep their bodies healthy?
So I've been working with a lot of our development players because this is a great time to do education, to share recipes, techniques, shopping lists, very easy food prep guidelines. Most of our pros have this dialed in. It's a lot of fun to watch them on Instagram. I know like Justin Abdelkader was just doing a video for overnight oats. I saw Gino Svechnikov, he was out fishing for salmon, and then he was showing how he sliced the salmon and was preparing it. So it's a lot of fun. Over the years, we've done so much with our development players who have come through the system, and a lot of recipes that just had 5 ingredients. Many of our players didn't read English, so we taught them how to prepare food just with pictures. When Luke Glendenning first came through at prospect camp, he said to me that he would eat out so often and he really needed recipes. And so that was an inspiration to try to make great tasting recipes with the right ingredients that we know will not be pro-inflammatory but anti-inflammatory, help with their recovery, their healing, because they're only going to make the gains if they have the right ingredients. But make it simple, and it has to be delicious. So we always have like a cook-off at camp, and make the best protein bars, energy balls, things like that. So making it fun. And then I have just a tremendous amount of resources, smoothies. I get calls from various players when they're grocery shopping, asking, what's the best olive oil, what's the best ice cream, and things like that.
You're going to be getting a couple calls from me, I'm sure. I love your protein bars and your veggies. Those are my favorite. Okay, so how important is it to have the right diet for both your mind and your body, especially for professional athletes?
Oh, well, the competition is so enormous, and it's a variable that we can control. So it's like investing money, compounded interest. These nutrients add up and they make our muscles as great as they can be, our resilience, our ability to recover, our stamina, endurance, our immune system. Everything is so important, and it's tied back to what we eat. All of these pathways in our body for inflammation are the cause of disease. And we know that 2 out of 3 Americans develop heart disease or cancer. So everybody should be eating this anti-inflammatory diet, and, just getting, some superfoods every day. We try to teach the players that what they include in their day is actually more important than what they exclude. So looking for like 80% great choices, 20% living a little. So that might be occasional beer and ice cream, but making sure that most of their choices for their meals are dialed in, and they're getting the superfoods, foods that are very rich in micronutrients. So we joke that, what's found in like a blueberry or a cherry is very different than what's found in like a Skittle.
That was a great analogy. What are some good superfoods you recommend to the players when they are working out and training and recovering?
Yeah, so what you'll always find available in our locker room are things like avocados, ginger, turmeric, tart cherry juice, greens, so leafy greens, arugula, spinach, Swiss chard, and the reason being it's so high in nitrate, which helps relax the arteries and gives us better blood perfusion to the muscle. So we really like to use greens whenever possible. Probiotics, we have kombucha on tap in the locker room. So getting a nice kombucha tea to help build the microbiome in the stomach, which can help with immunity. And then also a few other things that we like to have are dark chocolate, sweet potatoes, wild Alaskan salmon, chia seeds for sure, because they help with hydration. They're very high in fiber, omega-3 fatty acids. Berries are in all of our smoothies, nut butters. We have a peanut butter maker in the locker room, so we're just pressing the peanuts, and then we pack that on the trunk for our strength coach to put in their shakes post game. So really, just real food. Real food doesn't need a label. So as much as possible, things that are just whole, plant-based, extra micronutrients, lots of different colors, eating the rainbow, getting everything, garlic, onions, things that help our immune system.
Love it. Okay, so what is the most common nutrition mistake you see people making?
I think the most common mistake for the general population is eating too late at night. They find that a calorie is not the same if consumed at like noon or 2 o'clock as it is at like 11 o'clock right before bed. So probably one of the most sound pieces of advice is if you're going to have a sweet treat like ice cream, having it a little earlier in the night than right before bed.
Okay, that's helpful. Good to know for myself. Okay, so what should everyone be ingesting during this pandemic to boost their immune system? What's something you could recommend?
So a good healthy dose of sunshine. We know the virus doesn't like the sunshine. Having good vitamin D. And in order to get good vitamin D, we really need to get outside. Having direct contact with our eyes, the sunshine to the eyes without sunglasses on is really important for a good 10 minutes. Other things that help the immune system are the anti-inflammatory foods such as your quercetin and resveratrol. So like the apple a day, keeping the doctor away. That's actually really great advice. Things with probiotics, so the kombucha, kimchi, sauerkraut, Greek yogurt, those are all really helpful for the right probiotics for the immune system. And then vitamin C, during this pandemic, they've been researching like crazy to see what actually helps when you do get a virus. And so vitamin C and zinc are really important. So having foods that contain the vitamin C, things like bell peppers and cantaloupe, the oranges, that's really helpful as well.
Okay, that's very helpful. Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I'm so happy to see you're doing well and miss you at the arena, truly. Thanks for tuning in to Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. Back to you, Daniela.
Thank you, Carly. What a great interview. Glad to hear that Lisa is doing well after recovering from COVID-19. Art, I know you're a big fan of Lisa's as well. She has been on your podcast, The Red and White Authority. She's just great. And like I said, always great to hear that, you know, she's around the team and she's feeling way better now and that she did recover from COVID-19. Glad to see her doing well and that she was able to do this interview with us.
Well, yeah, Lisa kind of downplayed it. I know from the last podcast that she did, which is obviously still available on DetroitRedWings.com. I mean, she had a fever of 104 for 9 straight days. I mean, she was quarantined in her house and had to drive to the hospital for like nebulizer and breathing treatment. So it was pretty serious there. And so I think that what I really found interesting about that, and I've had her on many, many times, is that she said it, eat the rainbow. And, you know, that's the best way is if you on your plate, if you're eating the rainbow. And so I always tell her, I eat the rainbow. I eat a lot of Skittles. And I think that she even mentioned Skittles and she says that's the wrong rainbow. But, you know, another thing that she's doing out in the hospital system that she works out in Ann Arbor, she is developing a diet for healthcare workers, doctors, all healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, and everybody, you know, in between, of eating a diet that will build up your immune system. It's very important in these times, and I know this from talking to Lisa so much, of building up your immune system. So, I mean, she's really guarded too. The Red Wings have, and I know, Daniela, you've seen it, after every game, they have like a secret potion or something, some drink that she makes them, she's there every game, that she makes them drink. And, you know, and they drink it, you know, there's no negotiation here. You know, Lisa says, this is it, drink it. So they're all drinking this special drink. And I've always asked her, come on, Lisa, tell me what it is. Let me know what's in this drink. And she says, no. And she's dead serious. I don't want the competition to find out what we're drinking. So, and she's talking obviously about other NHL teams. So, I mean, she takes it very seriously. She's one of the best. She's a great human being. And I like that Cultivate Michigan. I kind of like that little logo where the state becomes like, I think they're leaves, right? Or lettuce things or something, but they're green. Eat the rainbow and you can't go wrong. Lisa, and I'm so glad she's recovered. And like I said, I think she downplayed it a little bit. I know from the podcast and talking to her, you know, and you know, another thing too, I know for a fact that, you know, Steve Yzerman, Jeff Blashill during that called her, made sure she was doing okay. Everybody was checking up on her, and you know, she's a very important part of this Red Wing machine.
Yes, she is. We are so glad she's okay. And the one thing that I remember from the season, she let me try one of the peanut butter balls that she made with homemade peanut butter that she actually made. They were so good. I could never do that myself, but they were delicious. So yeah, the players are eating well. Let's put it that way. Their nutrition is A1. They're good. They're good. Well, guys, like I said, still a jam-packed show for you. We've still got a little bit longer. We're going to hear from Kevin Allen in just a little bit. And Tigers fans, I know that you're dying for some baseball. Don't you worry. We've got Brush Street Beat right now. We are really excited to be joined now by Detroit Tigers shortstop Nico Goodrum. Nico, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem.
I understand that you're spending some time in Georgia during this quarantine period. And while the MLB season is suspended, you know, with everything going on, that's got to be one positive thing, spending some time at home, right?
No doubt. We barely get to be at our homes, 3 months probably in the off season. So being here and spending time here and actually seeing what a summer is like after probably 12 years for me of not seeing one in Georgia, it's pretty good.
Nico, before we get into the baseball talk, I have to ask you about this mural that's behind you. I can see Jackie Robinson. I see Nelson Mandela. I believe right behind your shoulder is Detroit's own Rosa Parks. Did you paint this?
Yeah.
What's the story behind this?
I wish I could take credit for his amazing piece, but an artist named Chose, he's on Instagram. You can look him up, Chose underscore. He came out here and he worked till maybe midnight every day for 5 days straight, and he put up the people I wanted there, and then after that point, I just let him have freedom. However you want to do it, and then end with Barack Obama. So it came out good, and like I said, I wish I could take credit for it, but I'm not that good. I just stick to baseball.
Very, 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 very nice. I mean, it really pops. You know what I mean? It really stands out.
Yeah.
Very cool.
No,
and you
no
said
doubt the background color did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. It did. And you said you stick to baseball. So we're going to get into talking some of that. First question for you. You were drafted as a shortstop originally, but really you've become a very versatile player. Is that the type of player that you've always been, or how did that develop?
Yeah, I got drafted as shortstop, played it well all the way through, and then the Twins really just, I guess they had who they wanted at short, and so at that point it became a uh, let's see if you can do it all. And then AAA was my first year actually playing all 7 positions outside of pitcher and catcher. So after that, that's how I made my break into the big leagues. And when I got to the big leagues with the Twins in 17, I primarily just played second base when I got in. But then that's how I followed up. People just got used to me playing everywhere, and then that's how I found my role with the Tigers when Romine left. Was they needed that super utility guy, and I could do it, and my athleticism allowed for it. So, but I've always been a shortstop, and people are seeing that now, and they're thinking, oh, we're just putting Nico at short. And it's like, no, I've always played that, and I played it well. So I'm excited to be back there, and I'm excited to get back going when the season starts.
When you were drafted by the Twins, I'm going off the top of my head, I believe in 2010 as a second-round draft choice, Ron Gardenhire was there. He was the manager. When you decided to sign with the Tigers, was he a big factor of why you ended up here in Detroit?
Yeah, Gardy was there when I got drafted. He was the manager. But as far as me signing with the Tigers, it was all on me. It was all on what was going to be best for me, and I finally got a chance to pick and do what's best for me rather than an organization telling me what was best for me. And so that decision was all on me as far as where I wanted to go, being a free agency. And then Gardy being there, and, we got Vavra, we had Steve Little there. So it was a lot of Twins guys there. Rick Anderson's there. And it just happened to work out, perfect situation. But my decision was just totally on the right fit for me.
And, in Minnesota may not have been the right fit for you, but here in Detroit, you seem to fit really, really well. Did you think of that as a new sort of beginning for your career, or what was your mindset heading into it?
I really, at first, I really didn't know. I was just going off of what was going to be best for my career, what I thought was best for my career. But getting into Detroit and seeing the people, it feels like I'm almost from Detroit, for the fact that we're almost the same. As I'm hardworking. I've never been handed anything. There's been so much adversity, and I feel that's what Detroit stands for. Anything they go through, they always come out and end better. So me and Detroit relate on there, and I love the city.
Well, you said you have that, that Detroit City work ethic. Obviously, a blue collar town. We work hard and play hard here in the Motor City, as everyone knows. I'm kind of curious. So, where's your mindset heading into this season, where you are the shortstop? I mean, that's your position. Are you a little more, I don't know, comfortable? I know a professional athlete is never comfortable, but do you feel that this is my opportunity? I've made the most of what has been given to me, and now it's paying off because I am the Tigers shortstop.
Yeah, I'm ready. I've always been ready for something like that, and any opportunity I've been given, I've taken advantage of it, and this is gonna, it's another opportunity for me, and I plan on taking advantage of this. And like I said, shortstop is something I've always played, so that's my most comfortable position on the baseball field, and I'm just very excited to get to work. I haven't played full time short and since the minor leagues, and it's just something that is so natural to me because I played all my life. And getting back to being able to do that day in day out is a thing that's how you get better doing something with repetition. So I'm just so excited to get a chance to play it again and get this season rolling.
Yeah, we're excited to see you at shortstop, but being able to play really anywhere on the field, do you think that's made you a better shortstop or a better player in general?
Yeah, I've been blessed with gifts. A lot of people aren't blessed with. You can't take a first baseman and put him in center field, and you can't take a lot of center fielders put them at short, a third at right. So people look at it as a negative that you can do it, but a lot of people can't do it. A lot of people can't play that type of position, but my best position is short, and I'm just now given a chance to show that. This year I'll be the chance, and I showed it last year as well that I can play short, and that opportunity just wasn't given to me, and it's given to me now. So, like I said, I'm gonna take advantage of it and make the most of it.
Nico, we heard that this year, neither Danielle and I were in spring training, but that there was a different vibe surrounding the Tigers. That you could see the semblance of a team starting to come together with some of the young prospects. Did you get a feeling that, and I know you haven't been here all that long in Detroit, but that spring training was a different feeling, was a different vibe as you guys were about to enter, the 2021 season?
Yeah, no doubt. I feel that chemistry is a big ingredient in winning, and the chemistry was definitely there, and it takes people holding each other accountable. And so I feel the more time people get on their belt, they can hold everyone accountable. Where some guys, when they first get in, they don't want to really talk much or be who they really are. And I think the key is allowing every player to be who they are, and that's when you get the best player. That's with any job. If you allow that person to work how they work and be the best they can be, they will be the best player. So I saw a lot of that, and I'm excited. It sucks that we had to postpone a little bit, but hopefully we can get things rolling, and you'll see what's going to happen.
Nico, it's got to be difficult to stay in shape during this time and ready to play baseball whenever they decide that it's time to return. But I have heard that you have an impressive home gym. Now, is this at your home in Georgia or is this one in Detroit?
No. This is here in Georgia, man. It has everything you need. I went to a different route and got black turf because I saw everyone have green and blue or red, but I like the black the way it looks in there, and I say probably 50 feet long and maybe 20 feet wide, just the turf. But my garage is probably a 40-foot wide garage. So there's a lot of space in there. I have tires, barbells, racks, bikes, treadmills, anything you think of, it's in there. And so I have no reason not to be in shape. I might try out for the Lions as much I've been working out, but it's been good. I have no reason not to be in shape. I have my gym here, and I've been at it since I got home from Florida.
Do you someday envision yourself hopefully in a ball game, maybe playing all 9 positions in one game? Is that kind of a goal of yours?
Absolutely not. I do not want to. I do not want to put that gear on and get back there and catch someone. And then I gotta block it. Oh no. So I can definitely get on the mound and throw it, but back there and putting that. I don't want to do that one.
But called upon, you could probably catch if you had to.
Oh yeah, there's nothing I can't do on the field now. I can tell you that right now.
I love that confidence.
So do I. I mean, I do too. That's got me fired up. You know.
I know.
That's right.
When you look at this whole season and the way that it's coming together, are you hopeful that sooner rather than later? I know that you want to get on the field, but do you have any inkling either way that soon that you will be back with your teammates?
That's the plan. You know, we're letting the union and our player reps handle. They're hearing our voices and let them handle what needs to be done. And you know, we're all on the same page. So now it's just me staying in shape, getting the updates and seeing what happens. But I know we're not going to play into the best deals in place for us. So like I said, I'm allowing them to take care of their business on their end and just staying in shape.
Well, Nico, we hope just as much as you do that you guys are back together soon. We miss baseball so much, and it was great to hear from you. Great to see you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yep.
And a big thank you to our friends at McLaren for bringing us the Brush Street Beat this week and every week here on The Word on Woodward. Nico Goodrum, thanks again for joining us there. And Art, I think throughout that whole interview, the thing that stuck out was actually his confidence. And we talked about it when he said that he could play catcher, but he doesn't want to play catcher. But really the entire interview, you could tell that he's really confident in his skills, especially being that he's going to start as shortstop when the Tigers do resume.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, he is one confident individual, and it's good to see. I think that, Nico Goodrum, it didn't work out in Minnesota quite like he wanted it to. It was a very high draft pick for them. He signs with Detroit, and, he's found a home. I mean, we've seen that with so many athletes. They start out in one city, they go to another, and then suddenly, they seem to find their game. The thing that I really thought was impressive is how he immediately related to the Detroit vibe, the Michigan work ethic, if you will. I mean, he really embraced it. He's not from here, but he felt like he was from here in Detroit. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play shortstop. I do think that he's earned that right. He's worked his tail off to be the Tigers shortstop. And let's be honest, as you're coming up through the ranks, usually the best player on your little league team or the best player on your team is usually the shortstop, right? So he's used to being kind of the man, and you can tell from that interview, he definitely wants to be the man on this team. So I'm looking for good things from Nico Goodrum. I think that he's going to emerge. He can hit for power, and surround him with a little bit better players, and and a couple of other twins that they ended, with CJ Cron and Jonathan Scope. I mean, if you look at all that, they can hit for power and all that. That makes the lineup better. That'll open it up. People are going to have to pitch to the entire lineup here. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, one more thing on Nico Goodrum before we switch gears here. Actually, you know what? That's okay. We'll come back to that later. It was great to hear from Nico Goodrum. Like we said, very excited to see him start at the shortstop position when the MLB does return. For now, let's get into Downtown Hockeytown. All right, everybody, let's get into Downtown Hockeytown, presented by Labatt Blue Light. And today's guest is Kevin Allen, a hockey writer and author. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today upon this big news in the NHL.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we've been talking about the 2014 format for a while now, but yesterday we finally got confirmation that that's what we're going to do, that there's going to be a play-in round before we even start the traditional 4-round. And if you're a Red Wings fan, the big question is it's going to be a long time before you're going to see your team again, because this term is probably going to stretch into October, November, maybe even December. But the Red Wings may not play until we start next season, which could be in January, and at the earliest, probably December.
Kevin, for the teams that actually did make it into this 24-team format, there's still a lot of uncertainties, such as host cities, testing, and everything else that goes into it. What do you think the next steps are for the NHL?
Well, I think they've got to decide what the host cities are going to be, and I think that's important to the players. They're going to need to sort of figure out, how this is going to work for them with their family relationships, and they still haven't finalized all the details about how the players will be sequestered. Obviously they want to keep everyone in a safe environment, and the idea of testing, again, is another one of the issues that's going to be worked out. There's an agreement in principle that the players are going to be tested regularly, but they're going to have to sort out how often they'll be tested. And, the NHL is on record as saying, look, one positive test won't cause us to shut it down. And basically it's going to be situational. Like if there's one test and no one else is positive, they'll carry on, that player will be quarantined. Even if it's a couple of players, they'll do that. The problem we'll run into if it becomes multiple teams and multiple players on those teams. So, there is certainly a chance that we could start this up, and if the virus sort of takes over in the tournament, then, they could shut it down. But as long as it's just isolated cases and they can get it quickly because of all the testing they're going to do, they feel like they can control it.
Kevin, I know you're a Hockey Hall of Fame writer. I don't think that qualifies you as a medical doctor, but I'm going to ask you this question, is that if there is a second wave, and this is purely speculative, do you think, even though they're all quarantined and everything's going fine, will they be able to continue, or do you think they're going to have to shut down?
Well, I think it's going to depend on what the circumstances are. If it was all on one team and there's been no cross-team transmission, I think they might continue to go. They'll just view it as injuries, that you'll have a roster you can bring people down. Now, we all know from following this that it doesn't necessarily work that way. That someone may come down with the symptoms on one day and test positive, and then a new group in the same group could test positive a few days later. So they're just going to have to watch it and monitor it. And, it's just going to depend on the circumstances. It's how many cases, where they're at, whether or not it's been transmitted across two teams. And if they can sort of figure out, the contact tracing is going to be crucial as well if there's some positive.
Aside from all the technicalities of it and things that still have to be decided, the 2014 playoff format, in my opinion, seems like it's going to be some pretty great hockey, and it could be pretty cool to watch. Kevin, what were your thoughts on this 2014 format?
Well, I think everyone's just going to, based on what's happened with the two charity golf tournaments we had when everybody was just enthralled with those, I think we're all going to be thrilled to have, regulation competition. And no matter what they did, I think that was going to be true. Now, there's going to be unrest with the way this works out, because there are some teams that are going to have some unfavorable matchups that wouldn't under normal circumstances, and some fan bases are going to be, like, for example, if the Montreal Canadiens, a team that wasn't likely to make the playoffs, beats the Pittsburgh Penguins in the first round, the Pittsburgh Penguins fans are going to be irate. And the same would be true if Chicago knocks off Edmonton. So there's going to be some unhappiness with the format. But I agree. I think the offense is going to be ahead of the defense. It takes a while to get your defense organized, to get everybody cohesively playing in one way. So I think there'll be more scoring. We might sort of see a style of play reminiscent of the 1980s. It'll be a little more scrambly until the teams get their defenses together. Remember, a lot of these guys aren't in shape, and they haven't been together since March.
Kevin, all I have to say to those 24 teams fan base that are playing is that you're actually playing hockey. So with that said, and I don't want to hear any crying or whining, especially if Carey Price, and that's how they're going to do it, knocks off the Penguins. But let's talk about the draft. And I'm going to give you 30 solid seconds to explain this format to us.
Well, I don't think anybody can do it in 30 seconds, but my understanding, if I have it correctly, is we're going to hold an initial regular draft, and if the 7 teams that aren't involved in the 2014 format, if they're end up winning the draft lottery, then that's the way it'll unfold. But if it's one of the alphabet letters that have been assigned to teams in the second group of teams that are going to end the lottery wins the draft, then we're going to have to wait to figure out who's going to be in those letters. So if that sounded complicated, that's exactly what I intended it to do, because it really is complicated. But the Red Wings were a loser when the NHL decided that they weren't going to have the early draft, because if they had moved the draft up, they were going to go to the old rules, and the worst the Red Wings would have ended up is second. We are back to now they could fall to fourth if 3 teams win the lottery and move up into the draft ahead of them. So they could go as far down as 4. And of course, they could win when they have an 18 plus point percentage chance of getting the number 1 pick.
When you look at it that way, when it breaks down like that, if you're the Red Wings, certainly this has been an odd draft because teams are going to make up. But if the top 3 slots, let's say they go wishful thinking, Detroit, Ottawa, the way it plays out in order of the way that they finish, then even though a team moves up into like 5 through 8 or something, one of the letter teams, do they have a phase 2? They still have a phase 2, or if the Red Wings get the number 1 pick on June 22nd, if they win it, then they've won it, right? They're never going to move. So
that's correct.
We have to make sure, but we have to watch A, B, because it's going to be 3 teams, right? So if one of those teams, one of the letter teams wins, gets either the first pick, second, or third, they're going to have a phase 2.
That is correct. And that's when they'll assign the teams to fit the letters, and then we'll have a better kind of understanding. And I know the fans in Detroit want Lafreniere and get that number 1 pick, but the Red Wings are going to end up with a top player, no matter where they end up. And if they're in the top 3, they can certainly have a top scoring forward. And Drysdale, the best defenseman, has been compared to Niedermayer, would certainly be a help as well. So I think the Red Wing fans, they may not be happy if they don't get the number 1 pick, but I think they're going to get a good player.
Kevin, as you said, I think the Red Wings are going to get a good pick in this coming draft year. They're going to get a good player regardless. But let's focus on the Red Wings right now. And I guess the rest of the teams that didn't make it into this 24-team playoff format, how do they kind of move forward now? I know it's officially off season, but it's not a normal off season. So how do they do that? How do they focus on what's next?
Well, I think the craziness of the pandemic has created almost an opportunity for the Red Wings that they wouldn't have had otherwise. As a rebuilding team, they're not an attractive destination for free agents. But because teams are sort of handcuffed financially and with the cap situation because of what happened with this season, the Red Wings could be a fallback position for some free agents. For example, if Steve Yzerman wanted to get a veteran goalie, thinking that maybe his young team could use some confidence with a goalie that's been around the block a little bit, he might be able to get one in the free agent marketplace. The Red Wings have a lot of cap space, and again, there are some defensemen available. Torrey Krug, who's a Michigan native, is going to be available on the marketplace as well. There are other players that might be of interest, and I guess they wouldn't normally be able to do it to be in the running for that, but I think they could under this environment. So I think there's a unique opportunity for the Red Wings.
Kevin, when you look at the Red Wings, what is your assessment of where they may be after year 1 under Steve Yzerman? Certainly, Steve is ultra aggressive, I think. I mean, he goes out and if he wants something, he usually gets it done. But do you think that they're in a pretty good situation, or do you think Yzerman might be looking at this thinking, I knew it wasn't a great situation when I came back to the Red Wings, but this situation is maybe even a little bit more dire than I thought?
Well, I think Steve Yzerman knew exactly what he was getting into, and I bet his assessment is roughly the same as it was. But, he drafted well in his first draft. Moritz Seider is going to be a top pairing defenseman. Fabre, this trade is going to help. I think he's identified that these younger players, particularly guys like Bertuzzi and Mantha, Hronek took a step up in his development. So there's a lot of positives there, but they're not close. Even with all the positives they got going, it's still going to take a couple of seasons before they're ready. But I would think that Steve Yzerman is realistic to know that next season is not going to be the Red Wings year. But I bet he's optimistic to think that the following season you're going to see some real progress.
Kevin, we really appreciate your time. Unfortunately, we have to wrap things up today. Like I said, really appreciate you joining us. Your insight was great. And thank you for breaking down that draft for me. It was a little bit confusing there. I appreciate your insight there especially.
Yeah, it was confusing for me, and I've been around 35 years, so I get it. So thanks for having me.
Kevin, really quickly though, who wins the cup? I mean, come on. I mean, is it too wide open? Who gut level? Who's winning the cup this year?
I think it's going to be the team that scores the most goals. I mean, I think it's going to be the 1980s. I really think it'll be an offensive team. So I'm thinking the Lightning have a good shot, the Bruins as well. Don't even rule out the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, this is a top-scoring team. Yeah, I mean, I really think goals will be king. That we won't be able to play defense quite the same way, not until we get to maybe the final, when by then everyone gelled and come together.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
See you later,
Kevin.
guys. Bye-bye.
And a big thank you to our friends at Labatt Blue Light for bringing us downtown Hockey Town every day here on the Word on Woodward. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Thanks again to Kevin Allen. And guys, I want to thank you for sticking with the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond all day today. I know it's been a long show, but we've had a lot of great stuff and we still have more to come for you. Carly's going to join us in just a minute, but Art, I got to follow up with you on that interview with Kevin. First of all, he was great to talk to. That was my first time talking to him. Very, very insightful. But what do you think about the overall draft plan here, the lottery situation? We haven't really asked you about that. I know the Red Wings kind of got hosed, so to put it lightly. So what do you think about the overall situation?
Well, it would have been nice, I guess, for the 7 teams that didn't qualify for the playoffs. And granted, I know Luke Glendening said earlier, we put ourselves in that position. It isn't anything that the league did. I mean, we played the schedule, and this is where, we happen to fall. But I think it would have been nice if somehow they were able to go back to the old rules. Now, granted, that means the Red Wings would have had the 1 or 2 pick, but I think that there has to be something. I think Red Wing fans, okay, the 26th, we're going to be excited. Okay, here we go. Let's see where the Red Wings are going to fall, and you're going to be sitting there, and you're going to see like Chicago or whomever, or a couple of teams move up, and then good old number 4 comes, and lo and behold, they pull out the Red Wing, the Red Wing card. I'm not pessimistic. Can you tell I hate this whole draft format? I think they should redo the whole thing. I don't know. I don't know how a team that can finish 13 or 11. Put it this way: last year, the Montreal Canadiens did not make the playoffs, and I think they had, off the top of my head, like 95 points. But they could have had the number 1 pick. That just doesn't seem to be right. I mean, you're talking about. I know it's tanking and all this kind of stuff. I'll be honest with you. I've covered professional sports a long, long time. I don't think teams tank it. They just can't. It's against everything that they're about. Each individual player goes out there, regardless of where they're at in the standings, to win. And they want to win and they want to perform. And they, it means something to be a professional athlete. It means something to represent, the city that you're playing for. So, again, it sounds like when they wanted to move the draft up, there wasn't overly enthusiastic crowds of GMs saying, yeah, let's do it. And I think, and I think I said this earlier, I think Gary Bettman said this in order to get something moving, like, hey, if we can't figure out a playoff format, if we're not going to figure out when we can come back to play, I'm going to move the draft up, because he can do that. It's up to Gary Bettman. I can move the draft up, and this is what we're going to do. So I think maybe he got the ball rolling. I don't think he thought he was going to get this much pushback about, hey, we're essentially going to go back to the rules that we have right now. And plus we're going to throw in, another, teams that are, 8 through 15. We're going to throw them in too, assign them a letter, and then we're going to have a phase 2. But if everything works out, then we won't have to have a phase 2. But my God, maybe we'll have a phase 3. And while we're at it, maybe I'll add a phase 4. I mean, enough is enough at a certain point, right? We're already being bombarded every day with all kinds of information. What was news yesterday or what was gospel yesterday isn't today. So, let's just make it as complicated as possible.
I'm just getting word that they're going to let you pick the order.
Okay, I think the Red Wings are first. And then I don't really care. No, in Toronto, you're at 31.
I knew you were going to throw that in. Kevin mentioned Toronto. And your head went like this, so I knew that you were coming in there soon.
Yeah, you know what, Toronto, obviously with that team, I mean, let's be honest, Toronto on the power play is incredible. And so depending on how these games are called, and Kevin's right, the offense is going to be there. The offense is going to come together quickly. But that's why, though, also, that's why goaltending is really important. So if you got Marc-Andre Fleury in net, who's won multiple cups, Carey Price, who's one of the best goaltenders of all time, I mean, look at who's in goal and how many offensive weapons each team have, and then pick your Stanley Cup winner based on that. Because defense is going to take a while. It's difficult to play. There's breakdowns. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And in all seriousness, I'm kind of whining here as a Red Wings fan, but I think they tried to do the best and try to appease everybody. That's why I still hope, and why I'm obsessed with this. I think that as soon as everything is safe and all state and city guidelines are met, I think the Red Wings are going to open up that Belfour Center. I implore them to open up that Belfour Center and put the ice in and kind of let this team come together. And the league should let them do whatever they want. I mean, within limitations, whether, Blash can go there, you can get the staff together, let them start practicing, let them start coming together, invite the Windsor Spitfires over, or the Flint Firebirds, or what, play them, the OHL teams, or do something. They got to play hockey. They have to play hockey. They have to get back on the ice. I don't care what anybody says. It's very imperative. Okay, maybe they didn't play well enough to qualify for this playoff format, this 2014 playoff format. But my gosh, the professional athletes, they're part of the NHL. You're going to have to give them something and let them go back to work. I should run for office.
Art, I got to say, I knew I was going to get you going with that question. I knew I was going to get you going with that question. So I fully expected that. All right, guys. But now we're going to move on to Let's Socialize and bring back Carly, who's been all over the social media accounts. Carly, I'm going to let you take this one away. What do you got for us today?
Thanks, Danielle. Man, oh man, I was sitting here waiting for that Socialize to start. All right. We have a couple questions today. After the virtual scrubs, first one is for you, Art. Geez, I don't even want to ask you this question, but they want to know, does anyone know when the draft will happen? So, I mean, I know we know. Go ahead.
We know that phase one of the draft, and maybe the only phase, depending on how it plays out, is going to be the 26th of June. But after the 26th of June, the Red Wings are going to know where they're slotted, and then they're going to have until next December? So I would say this. I would say that based on what we've heard so far, and if they wait till after the playoffs, I would think that it's not going to happen till October. I would assume October or November, depending on how long this playoff format takes. And then, what may happen, and I don't want to sound like Dr. Doom and Gloom here, but I think what may happen, if there is a second wave and it comes back and it's unfortunately a terrible second wave, they might have to shut it down again, as Kevin alluded to, Kevin Allen, who we just had on. And if they have to shut it down again, maybe at that point you say, hey, we gave it our best. We're not going to award a Stanley Cup this year. Just impossible. The logistics, we're going to be running into 2022 if we keep this up. So why don't we just, end it now and then figure out a draft? So I would say most likely after the playoffs, October at the earliest, depending on when they can get started, and late December at the latest. I think that's when the draft will happen.
Okay, so the lottery late June, and then you're saying end of the year for the draft. Okay, and now Daniela, I have a question for you. Which team do you think could surprise everyone in the new 2014 playoff format that unfortunately we aren't a part of? But what team, again, do you think will surprise everyone?
Well, I think Art and Kevin both touched on the Canadians being a little scary here in a 5-game series where Carey Price could definitely win 3 games. But the team I'm going to go with, and Red Wings fans are probably going to hate me again for who I'm going to pick, but the Chicago Blackhawks are matching up with the Edmonton Oilers in the first round when this does return. And the reason that I find Chicago so interesting is because I think they were a little injured on the blue line when the league did go on pause. So they're obviously going to be healthy when they return. Something that everyone should consider really, and this could make it a difference for every team, is the fact that they're going to be playing on neutral sites, basically, like no fans at all, really. So there's not going to be that advantage for Edmonton. And I think they've got the experience on their team, and Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane. It's just, I think Chicago is going to make a run for their money. And I think they're going to give Edmonton everything we have. And if I had to make a prediction, they're definitely getting out of the first round.
Sorry to put you in that situation, Danielle. I can't imagine the hate mail you might get from that. But Art, I know you're going to answer that question too.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think a team that I really like, and I've liked for a long time, and I know they were hosed last year in the playoffs. I think the Vegas Golden Knights have a really good shot at winning the Stanley Cup. Marc-Andre Fleury is a great goaltender. He's won the cup before. He knows what it takes. I think that they have offensive weapons. The trades that the Golden Knights have played, I think their defense is pretty underrated. So I really like the Vegas Golden Knights, a team that I would look as a sleeper team, believe it or not. If Bobrovsky if the Bob can get his act together, would be someone like the Florida Panthers. They also have a lot of offensive weapons, and Jonathan Huberdeau is really an underrated player. But I do have to say I like Daniela's pick of the Blackhawks simply because we're talking about Carey Price. Patrick Kane is just as capable of winning a series on his own too. I mean, he is a very, very special player. So, don't underestimate. And Patrick Kane is a big time player. He's a money player. He scores big goals. He's very much like in, if they can get past Carey Price, don't never count out Sid Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins either. But, there's certain players that rise to the occasion at big times in big games. Patrick Kane, one of them. Carey Price, another. Sidney Crosby, certainly one. And, Marc-Andre Fleury with the Vegas Golden Knights. So I know I gave a bunch of teams there, but I think that Vegas could end up winning it all.
Yeah, man, I think you gave us 3 teams there. All right, great answers. And now let's pivot to the Tigers. Morris had another episode of The Drip this morning, and he had on someone we heard from earlier in the show, Nico Goodrum. They had a great conversation, but I wanted to highlight this where they both touched on how they can't wait to get back on the field. Check it out.
But that's why I'm just saying I'm ready whenever they
Ready
say
whenever.
let's go.
That's what I've been saying.
I'm
ready
just
whenever.
my body's good. Like I made sure I have no excuse with that gym I have. So
Yep.
I'm just ready whenever everything gets handled. I'm good to go.
Likewise.
He has in his home, and again touching on it and how it's keeping him ready to make that return. Okay, and now some amazing news coming from Jonathan and Martine Bernier. They are expecting their 3rd child. How incredible, due in December. The couple already has 2 boys, Tyler and Brady, but maybe they'll add a girl to the mix. What do you guys think?
I think they will. I think it's going to be a girl for sure on this one, Carly. And I got to say, this is the second quarantine baby that we've seen on Let's Socialize here. So
what happens when you take away sports?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I've got to say this. I think we've learned a lot about Jonathan Bernier and, not what he does in his spare time during the quarantine, but I mean, what exactly his family, they have a great sense of humor. I mean, Bernier's a goalie anyway, so they're a little bit off center, as we all know. But I think he's having fun with it. I think he's embracing it, and he's trying to, make the best out of an untimely situation. You know, no one knows what the next day is going to bring at times, and so I like the way Bernier, he did using his, exercising with his wife as far as, she became like a weight bench or something, all that kind of stuff. I mean, and having the kids, I mean, I think it's cool. I think, congratulations to them, obviously, but, I think Jonathan Bernier has had the right mindset during all of this and kind of, keeping his wits about him and having some fun.
Yeah, they're officially outnumbered now. A great family, so that's amazing. Congratulations to them. And last but certainly not least, a major happy birthday shout out to Kirk Gibson, stand-up guy both on and off the field. So for us, from here and the Word on Woodward wanted to send a big happy birthday shout out to Gibby.
Happy birthday, Gibby. I know we haven't seen him in a while, but I'm looking forward to getting him back in the FSD broadcast team and all of that. It's been a while. So happy birthday to Kirk Gibson.
Right. Kirk Gibson, I remember him, being back at Waterford High School, at Waterford Mott, but, then playing for Michigan State and then obviously being a Tiger. Worked with him at a few radio stations along the way as well. Gibby's a great guy, very intense, very motivated. I like the way that he always told me that whenever he would go into anything, and I think he's even written a book about this, on the athletic field, he would visualize it. He's hit a couple of great big home runs, one for the Tigers against the Padres, and then obviously when he was with the Dodgers, the pinch hit home run where he could barely walk. But if you talk to Gibby, he'll tell you that before he went up to bat, in every situation, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, he visualizes hitting that home run. I mean, he makes that mental image of exactly how it's going to play out and what it does, which goes to show you that he has obviously great concentration powers. Gibby's one of us too. He's a native Detroiter. So happy birthday, Kirk.
Love it. All right, you guys, that's all I have for you guys this time.
Well, thank you, Carly. It was great to see you, and thank you for being all over the social media. We had such a fun show today. It was great to have you on earlier, too. And so we'll see you next time. Thank you for helping us.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
Let's Socialize is presented to you by AAA. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. And thank you guys for sticking with us through the Word on Woodward today, presented by Raymond Art. We're at the end of the show, and boy, was it an exciting one today.
What?
So we had a lot to talk about. It was great.
Are you kidding me? The show's over? It's we only gone
wait,
over
go
3
for
hours.
4
I mean,
everybody?
yeah. Hey, if the crew's up for it, I can go till 4. Hey, it was a great show. What I love about this show, since it's live, we're able to cut away to Blashill, we were able to cut away to Luke Glendenny, we're able to cut away to Dylan Larkin, and and I'm so happy because I really, it gave fans into the insight of how privileged we are and how fortunate we are that, to ask questions and be part of that and what we do, but to see it from beginning to end and how they conduct themselves and what gentlemen they all are and how they're really open and honest and do their best to say what's on their mind. So I thought it was a great show today from the insight that we were able to give inside the locker room, because this is it. Today was clean out day. Today was locker room clean out day. Today would have been picture day, but now I guess from what Daniela has told us, they're going to be doing that Zoom photograph for the team photo, which I still think is an excellent idea. I truly believe that. You should. I mean, well, you asked Dylan about it, but then Dylan thought you were throwing the responsibility on him. It's like, hey, wait, Daniela, I'm about to get to C. Now you want me to coordinate the team picture? What are you, crazy? But overall, I just I thought it was great because this is what we can do. We can provide this when stuff breaks, whether it be the Red Wings or the Tigers or whomever. The baseball draft is coming up next week or 2 weeks from now, I guess it is. Who's to say whomever the Tigers pick number 1, boom, next day he's on Woodward and he's really happy, Torkelson. But we'll see. That's who I'm wishing. that's who I'd like to see. I mean, I have no say in it, and I'm sure now that
Torkelson on with us at the same time.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? Lafreniere and Spencer Torkelson together again for the very first time on the Word on Woodward. Tune in; it's going to happen. Well, what a positive.
I'm not making any promises, but that would be a great show.
Yeah.
Art, I know that we've been talking all this sports talk today. We all want to watch something, but our friends at FSD are still going to give us some Tigers Classic games. There is one on tonight as well. We can watch the 1985 All-Star Game, and we know that was a good one. We've talked to a few former Tigers about that one, and really all of the All-Star games are going to be pretty cool to watch. But they've got the Tigers clinching the AL East on Monday and a couple more next week, and it's just great that we have these games because I really enjoy watching them, and the 85 All-Star Game has been one that I'm looking forward to, and I'm excited that we finally get to see it tonight.
Well, as sports begins to rev up a little bit, I think that you're seeing that these games are really fun to watch because you're starting to get revved up, and then you look, and what better way than to see some all-star games where you're seeing stars of the past, players that had some really influence on you that were able to to watch them again. Watching the 71 Classic the other night was just incredible. Watching the 85 game is going to be just as incredible. It was kind of Comerica Park's national coming out party, if you will. I'm looking forward to it. These games have really grown on me. I'm like one of those guys, been there, done that. I know what the outcome is. Well, guess what? And maybe I'm getting a little older, certain things that I remember how they played out when I rewatch these games, it's not quite like I remember it. So it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. You know what else is a lot of fun, Art? Hockey Town Trivia, and that is still happening today, you guys. It's happening right now. We're about to sign off, so make sure that you get over to the District Detroit app, join Hockey Town Trivia. Today's subject is TV. So it's going to be a really fun one. Make sure you get over there and play along on, again, that's the District Detroit mobile app. Get on the app and you'll see the Hockey Town Trivia banner, and it's all right there. Thank you guys again so much for joining us here on the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. We've got a lot of big guests lined up for next week. We're going to have appearances from Alex Fajedo, John Schreiber, Ken Kale, and we're even going to have Armando Galarrago on with the headliner interview with Art. It's going to be a really great one. That one you do not want to miss. So we'll see you next time right here on the Word on Woodward.